Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Bradburn. Alongside me is Logan Camden. And NBA All-Star Weekend, Logan, it came and went. Games were played, festivities were enjoyed. Get Higher 77, aka Get Off My Dickerson, was there. Do you have any thoughts on the KD files, Logan?
I believe all of them, and it drastically makes me look at Kevin Durant differently as a human being and a person and a guy I would want in my locker room.
Valid. I don't know if they're real, obviously. Holy shit. They are so damning if they are real. Evidence of maybe the biggest loser mentality in the history of mankind. Yeah. However, Logan, I'm not going to throw stones from my little glass house because we all know the Nerd Sesh files are coming. And when the Nerd Sesh files come, neither you or I is ever going to be seen in this country again. I am immediately making like a banana for probably Siberia. Probably the
I'm
only
going to
place I'd be
Romania.
safe.
Yeah, I'm out of here.
Good call. Good call. Very good call. Very lenient laws over there. That being said, we're not talking about the All-Star game, the All-Star weekend, or even the KD files today. We are going to talk about KD at some point, though, because we are ranking the top 10 scoring peaks in NBA history. We just ranked the top 10 passers last episode. We are continuing with this all-time ranking series today. And as always, Logan, before we get into the list, we have to establish what exactly we are ranking here with this list. So what is your criteria?
I think first and foremost, as we do with all of these historical episodes, we have to mention that we are judging these guys relative to their era. I'm not going to penalize a guy in 1975 for not being able to drain a three-pointer when, you know, it's a completely different sport. The game evolves naturally over time, and I think you have to judge guys relative to their era. To be fair, inconsistent. For me, this is a scoring peak, so I'm giving these guys a 3 to 5 season run. I think that's important to mention, too. We are not talking about career accolades. We are not ranking the top 10 scorers of all time in raw volume. That's boring. I am going with a scoring peak. For some guys, it's going to be 3 seasons exactly. For some, it's going to be 4. For some, it's going to be 5. Scoring versatility matters to me, but it is not the be-all, end-all. I think the be-all, end-all for me is how unstoppable you were. Like, how many different environments could you get buckets in? Can you score through a variety of defensive coverages and matchups? And most importantly, I think to me, how well did your scoring translate to the playoffs? In that kind of environment, were you able to get buckets as efficiently as you were normally? Were you more efficient? Did your scoring volume uptick? That's really important to me. So I would say that's the crux of my criteria.
Logan, as I expected, after we had super different criteria in our top 10 passer rankings, we have almost identical criteria here. All 3 to 5 year peaks on my list. Scoring value completely relative to era is the most important bottom line criteria for me. Like, it's really about your effectiveness, your scoring value, your scoring impact. I do value versatility, but mostly just because that tends to be what scales best in a playoff setting, right? Having a number of counters, having a number of ways that you can get your buckets is ultimately going to make you generally more impervious to one specific coverage, one specific matchup giving you trouble, because you have a lot of different answers you can turn to. However, if you could completely dominate in spite of a lack of versatility, then I'm not going to hold that against you. If you have such a freak A++ ability that you were able to be totally dominant in a pretty similar way across matchups, well, good, you were totally dominant. You were just as effective as somebody who reached those same results, but maybe did it with more versatility, did it with more aesthetics, more flair, whatever. That stuff doesn't matter to me at all. I want to be clear about that. We're not judging the artistry, the aesthetics of a scorer. I am looking at effectiveness and value. I am absolutely not going to hold a lack of versatility purely due to era against you, because as you said, Logan, the three-point line wasn't even introduced until 1980. Like, if I'm comparing a modern big man like Nikola Jokic, who has the ability to stretch out beyond the three-point line and make close to 40% of those shots, obviously, that makes him a more versatile scorer than somebody like a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was completely dominant, but inside of 12, 15 feet, overwhelmingly working out of the post. Jokic is more versatile, but so much of that is a product of era and league-wide skill development that what I care about is who was most effective in their time. And just to use one example here, that would be Kareem, even though he is obviously the less versatile scorer. Like you, I value playoff performance a decent bit more than regular season performance. Both matter. We do tend to get a bigger sample size in the regular season, but we get a healthy playoff sample size with all these guys too. And I just think the playoffs are the truest test of a scorer really throughout NBA history, because you are facing the best defenses. You are facing defenses that are going to see you repeatedly over a 7-game series. They're going to key in on your tendencies. They're going to game plan for you to the utmost potential that they can. Physicality is going to ramp up. Like, those are when championships are decided. That's the most meaningful, most challenging basketball. So I do think it is ultimately the best measure of a scorer. And I do value scoring efficiency a lot. This is absolutely not a pure volume ranking. Of course, volume matters a lot, right? Your ability to self-create at high volume is a huge part of scoring value. But all these guys on this list are scoring at big time volume. So the ability to make the most of all your opportunities, to have some sort of path to hyper efficient, self-created, or play finishing offense, that matters a lot to me. That's going to be the separator in a lot of these conversations, where two guys are generating very similar volume. Who could do it more efficiently is something that really matters to me. And I am not really incorporating playmaking value that is born out of scoring threat on this list. What I mean by that is somebody like Steph Curry is one of the 3, 4, whatever you think, maybe the most valuable offensive player ever, overwhelmingly because of his scoring threat, the gravity, the ability to stress defenses off the ball and from such distance that he's going to force so many defensive mistakes and he's going to draw such overwhelming amounts of attention. That is driven by his scoring threat. However, it does not purely measure actually his scoring production, efficiency, ability to put the ball in the basket. If there is a way to scheme around an opposing player's scoring that may increase their playmaking value, right, may increase the quality of shots that they are creating for their teammates, but decreases their scoring volume, I am considering that playmaking value, not really scoring value. I know that's a very nuanced distinction to make, and it is tricky because all these things are interrelated. That is my criteria here, though. And Logan, as we talk about judging everybody relative to era, which is absolutely the way to do it, in my opinion, as we always say, you cannot expect somebody to be decades ahead of their time. The league changes so rapidly, rules change, the game progresses because of improvements in technology and medicine and training and skill, all these things. You judge people relative to how they performed against their peers, how much they excelled against their peers. Measuring scoring value, volume, efficiency is kind of a tricky thing to do because there are such vast differences across eras in terms of just the style of basketball being played around the NBA, the level of basketball being played. So there's a pretty easy way to do it with efficiency, actually, which is just relative true shooting. That's the number that I always use. That just measures your true shooting percentage relative to the league average that year. That's an easy adjustment to make. But what's a lot trickier is how do we adjust for pace in a way that is most accurate? Because kind of the instinct is, okay, let's look at points per 75 possessions, because that does adjust for pace. And that's great because that is going to highlight a major outlier like 1962 Wilt, who obviously set the record for single season scoring, 50.4 points per game, but he simply had way more possessions to score because he played every minute and because pace was crazy fast at that time in NBA history, right? His Warriors were averaging like 130 possessions per game. It was crazy. So adjusting to per 75 possession scoring does make that adjustment for pace, but it does not adjust for the fact that each possession was much less efficient back then than they are today. So yes, it creates that initial adjustment of understanding, okay, Wilt had way more opportunities to score, and so we have to contextualize the volume in that way, but also looking at it purely on a per possession basis is too punitive to his scoring because the league was so much less efficient on a per possession basis. So raw volume doesn't tell the proper story here, but purely pace adjusted volume doesn't either. That's why, Logan, I have come up with a new metric. Maybe it's not actually, probably somebody has come up with it before. I've never seen it. I wasn't able to find it. So the way that I am going to measure scoring volume and try to adjust for these huge differences in era is with this metric league efficiency adjusted points per 75 possessions, because my take is we need something that is both pace adjusted and league efficiency adjusted. That's what this number captures. That is the number that I am going to cite for each player whose peak I discuss in this video. I wanted to have like one bottom line scoring volume number and not have to contextualize every single time, oh, these were the points per game, but pace was so different, offensive efficiency was so different, and go through all these different numbers. This to me is the best capture of a player's scoring volume. The formula, for those who are interested, is league offensive rating in the seasons of the player's peak divided by the average league offensive rating since the merger, which is 107, and then you multiply that number by the player's points per 75 possessions. So if the league is super efficient like it is right now, the player's per possession volume is going to be decreased a little bit by this number because it's easier to score on a per possession basis now. Whereas if you go back to Wilt's era, right, when it was much harder to score on a per possession basis, those players are going to get a bit of a boost with this formula, as they should. To me, it adjusts for that vast difference from Wilt's era to now in offensive efficiency, but also obviously every little adjustment needed in between, as we have the dead ball era and we have various different spikes and lulls in offensive efficiency. It's the best metric I've been able to come up with that stabilizes for those big differences in efficiency and pace across eras. I think it's a really good number. However, Logan, I did just come up with this in my lab by myself. Now that I've explained it, does that make sense to you? Because I want to make sure that it's clear to everybody why I'm using this number throughout the episode.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense why you're using. I'm not doing that. I'm going to just, honestly, I think my be-all, end-all is more so just how unstoppable were you in your era. Like, and I'm not, I like that you've come up with a number, but I think the reason that you're coming up with this is because, like, these raw numbers aren't the be-all, end-all. And they shouldn't be the be-all, end-all for you, the listener, the viewer, if you are making these distinctions. Like,
totally.
Your argument shouldn't just be, yes, it's impressive Wilt scored 100 points in a single game, right? He also scored 73 points in a single game, right? If that was your only metric, I don't think you're diving deep enough into, the actual game. So,
right.
It's not the be-all, end-all for me either, but I do like that you've come up with a metric where that standardizes it for everyone in consideration for this list.
Absolutely. Thank you for clarifying that. I mean, the pure numbers are not going to be the sole determining factor for anybody on this list. However, we're obviously going to cite efficiency and volume numbers. I wanted to make those numbers as accurate, considering how much we are judging these players relative to their era, as I possibly could. It doesn't tell the story of Wilt's 1962 season compared to these other great scorers to just say, oh, he scored more points than anybody else ever, because again, we have to make that massive pace adjustment, but also to say, oh, he was at 24 points per 75 isn't quite right, because he was playing in an era when league average offensive ratings were in like the low 90s, and now they're up at 115, right? So I just think it's the best way to account for all those factors, but also I think it's actually helpful that you are going to be using different numbers, because then people can kind of see, okay, what's the difference between raw points per game and then this league adjusted efficiency per 75 possessions that I've come up with. That's the criteria. Now let's get into the honorable mentions, Logan. As was the case with the Passers episode, I have so many. I have 14 honorable mentions. So I basically did a top 25, but why don't you shout out the couple toughest cuts for you first?
There is one guy here that isn't going to make my list, and I'm not going to even give any clues to it, that I think is going to be probably my most controversial take of this episode. I am anticipating him being on your list. If you get to him in your honorable mentions, I'll go ahead and I'll rip the Band-Aid off too, but okay. I'm not even going to touch him because I think there is a high probability that he's on your list. I'd say my toughest cut was actually Dirk Nowitzki. I went with Dirk from 2009 to 2011. Dirk at this stage in his career, you have to remember, it's not the most athletic version of Dirk, but it is the most efficient and best scoring version, I think, of Dirk, because he has got this old man strength, and there's just absolutely nothing you can do with him. In the playoffs, he actually was even more efficient than the regular season. He averaged 2 more points per game on 4% better true shooting in the playoffs versus the regular season, while drawing 2 more free throws per game. In the playoffs, he gave you 27 points per game on 8% higher than league average true shooting. Like, Dirk at this stage in his career, there's just nothing you could do with him. He's going to get to his spot. He's going to back you down, and he's got some of the best touch of all time. So I think a lot of people, when they think of Dirk, would go with some of his MVP seasons. I would go with that later, older, craftier, stronger version of Dirk. And there's a lot. There's so many good honorable mentions on here. I think Dirk was probably my toughest cut, though.
Yeah, I have no comments on Dirk at this time. Logan, who's your next honorable mention?
Well, that was actually not the guy I was talking about earlier, but
well,
I
can't read me, buddy. I keep you on your toes.
I have also 1988 to 1991 Charles Barkley on my list. Chuck was a really tough cut. I think young Chuck is a marvel to watch. I always enjoy going back and watching old basketball games just with how different the game is, but Chuck is so unique. Watching a guy that compact, that strong, but also that so just insane verticality. Like, he's one of one. And watching Chuck bully guys on the low block, he's so efficient, so ahead of his time. Great at drawing free throws, over 10 free throws a game during this time period. And I know you made this argument when we were talking last time about Chuck in a historical context, but I do think this is the scoring peak for Chuck, where it's like just the most athletic version of him, where there's, again, not a whole lot you can do with him. On the block, he's going to spin off you and go up with it. He's going to bully you. An incredible athlete, super efficient, and, again, super unique. But he just misses my list. I think he was my second toughest cut.
Chuck was one of my honorable mentions. However, lower down on the list of honorable mentions, the efficiency is absolutely outstanding. It's like GOAT level efficiency. The guy led the league in true shooting percentage for 4 straight years. He led the league in 2-point percentage for 4 straight years. Just this incredible combination of such elite power with the unique ball handling and agility at that time. And you mentioned the foul drawing, the transition scoring, like, he was a really exceptional offensive player, just couldn't quite get up to the same heights of scoring volume for all the guys who are really hovering around this list. I think that's the knock on Chuck, but I think you picked the right version. I do believe absolutely that he picked in those late 80s, early 90s Philly years, actually, before he got to Phoenix. I'll shout out my first honorable mention, and just off the top of my head, it feels like this is the guy who you were hinting at, who you were saying not on your list. You anticipate he's going to be on mine, because I do think he would be on a number of people's lists. James Harden was probably my toughest cut. Is that the man you were thinking of, or no? Neither of us can read each other. Good. How exciting. How mysterious.
I didn't even – I don't mean to hate on Harden. I didn't really think that hard about Harden, considering his playoff dropping.
Okay, my counter argument to that would be the playoff dropping is all relative to the regular season standard that he set, which is one of the highest regular season
he's just so dependent
of all time.
He's so dependent on the three-point jumper and the jump shot in general, and he's routinely hovering around 33% from deep. I just think that Harden, everybody on my list, and again, I value playoff scoring so much. I think Harden's game just scaled worse to the playoffs than basically everybody on my list.
Well, I agree, and that's why he's right off my list. But the regular season peak, when it comes to self-creation volume, James Harden is, in my opinion, the best we've ever seen in the regular season. Just the ability to inevitably get to that step back three when he wants, the ability to create with a level of volume out of isolation, where you've got James Harden circa 2019 and 2020 scoring about 15 isolation points per game. I mean, he's doubling and more the player scoring the second most isolation points per game in the NBA, combined with this massive pick and roll scoring volume. Like, his bread and butter stuff in the regular season was essentially unstoppable, right? He was so damn hard to stay in front of with that crazy change in pace and that crazy shifty first step. And then, of course, he had this incredible ability to spring back for the step back at crazy volume. He could get to the line 10 plus times a game. He could get into floater range and get to the rim, and like just had really optimized in a lot of ways that regular season on ball scoring. In these regular seasons from 2017 to 2020, his peak, 31.5 league adjusted points per 75 possessions. That is a massive, massive number on plus 6% relative true shooting. So the regular season peak is top 5 in terms of scoring. It's just the playoff dropping that does make him my toughest cut. In the playoffs, 28.8 league adjusted points per 75 on plus 2% relative true shooting. I mean, still really big volume, but not very close to what it was in the regular season. And it's really the efficiency that takes a significant hit. And that's why he does, again, just miss my list. It's that repeated playoff underperformance that, by the way, we can look even back to some postseason runs before this specific stretch, and the pattern remains the same. As much as he could optimize his scoring in the regular season, the lack of versatility in the playoffs did damage him. Some issues dealing with increased physicality, a bit of a diminished whistle, and as you said, just the fact that he was so reliant on the step back three at such volume, and over these 4 playoff runs, he shot 31% from deep. That is such a huge chunk of his scoring arsenal that just diminished in value so much in the playoffs. It was a repeated pattern. I do think teams were able to sit on his tendencies. I do think his legs left him deep into a lot of these playoff runs, and just after a long regular season overall. And so he never maintained his level as a jump shooter. And if he had more variety, if he had any sort of off-ball scoring skill set or more of an intermediate game, he would have had more answers to the test and would have been able to hold up better probably. So that's why I leave him just off. Also, really high scoring turnover numbers. That's an issue in both the regular season and the playoffs that I don't think the conventional measures of scoring efficiency capture, because that number doesn't show up anywhere in a true shooting percentage. But when you look at points generated per possession as a scorer, turnovers cost you actually more than a missed shot does. And part of the turnover numbers for Harden being so high are just he had the ball so much and attempted a lot of pretty high leverage passes, higher risk passes. But if you just look at scoring turnover percentage, the percentage of scoring possessions, scoring attempts when he turned the ball over, he's consistently like 7 to 9%. For context, Shai is at like 4%. So Shai is incredible at this, right? But if you're turning the ball over while trying to score twice as much as another ball-dominant great scoring guard, that's an important measure of efficiency that doesn't get discussed enough. So I know there's going to be a lot of Harden people. I'm sure, again, he would be on a ton of people's lists, and he is really close for me because that self-creation volume is absurd. But the playoff issues do just come back to bite him a little bit too much. Who's next for you, Logan?
You mentioned this guy briefly already, and I don't know if this is going to be controversial, but I don't have Steph Curry on my list. And
Whoa!
Yeah, I know it's nuts, but when I think about scoring, it's the offensive engine point that you were making with Steph that I think is so important. And when I think about scoring individually, and I want to be clear, somebody like Adrian Dantley isn't on my list either, right? Adrian Dantley is absurdly efficient. His numbers are ridiculous. Like, if you were just looking at this through a chart or a graph, you would go, oh my God, he's got to be top 5 all time, right? Like, it's just not as simple as that to me. I think Steph's value is also interrelated. Like, offensive players, point blank, period. I think the way Steph Curry stressed defenses in the modern era, so unique and so valuable that you could make an argument that he's the greatest offensive player of all time. I think it is a very strong argument that you could make. But I think all of Steph's value is so interrelated with how he stressed the defense and how it manufactured shots for his teammates and everything all together. When I just think about scoring individually, Steph isn't one of those guys to me. And it's partly due to the fact that I don't think Steph's athletic prime overlapped with when he was at his scoring peak. I think Steph's scoring peak is probably 2021 to 2023. That's when he's his most polished and his craftiest. And he wasn't super efficient back when he was at his, athletic prime, when he was actually getting downhill all the way.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Like, I think he was a little bit more susceptible to physicality and
but he's still one of the most efficient scorers ever.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm just saying I don't think they necessarily overlapped at the same time with one another. And I'm not saying Steph's shooting is like the greatest weapon in NBA history. Again, when we were talking about his complete value as an offensive player, I think there is a real argument that he is just the GOAT in terms of what he does for a team offense. But when I think about scoring individually and some of his shortcomings, Steph wasn't as efficient when it came to the playoffs. He is really, really reliant on the three-point shot. He is the greatest shooter of all time. I am dinging Steph a little bit for that overlap not all coming together, for him being a little bit less efficient in the playoffs and guys having more versatility to their game.
I'm shocked. I'm going to reserve comment on Steph Curry at this time because he is on my list. However, I'm really glad you brought up Adrian Dantley. I think he is somebody who should be mentioned when I clarify my criteria for this list because I talk about scoring value, scoring impact. That is not equivalent to offensive impact, right? But there is a strong correlation there. The great scorers are going to be great offensive engines, even if they aren't necessarily elite playmakers or whatever, right? There's just going to be such immense scoring value that they bring to the table that they're going to lead to really good team offense year over year. Adrian Dantley is somebody whose scoring numbers are frankly so fake just because the way that he played within a team context was like so many levels below the truly great scorers who we're talking about. He was such a black hole. He was such a deeply selfish player. He would literally inflate his efficiency by hitting his teammates with like just straight grenades, right? And he never created any passing value for his teammates. He's one of the worst passing stars ever, which we're not talking about, but the truly all-time great scorers lead to great team offense. Adrian Dantley, he may have this sexy combination of volume and efficiency, but the Jazz were consistently among the worst offenses in the NBA when he had his best scoring seasons. They had one above-average offense ever with Adrian Dantley. So he could put up his 30 points per game on like crazy, whatever, plus 10% true shooting. It does not move me in terms of scoring value. It did not make his team offenses meaningfully better. And so he is like the epitome of the guy who is not what I'm looking for on this list, even if there are some really impressive aspects of his statistical scoring resume.
The most frustrating thing about Dantley going back and watching games of his is the guy was actually capable of passing the ball. It's not that he wasn't a talented passer or he didn't know what plays to make. He just didn't want to.
Extraordinarily selfish.
An actual reluctance to move the ball. Like, the only time you could get Dantley to move the rock is if he got double or triple teamed. Like, it's kind of incredible. And, like, his numbers are ridiculous. But, again, when you're talking about the team offense aspect of it, the fact that it didn't lead to anything, that did matter to me. And Dantley's numbers are just, frankly, absurd. 30.5 points per game in the regular season on plus 9% true shooting. In the playoffs, granted, this is one playoff run because this team's rarely made the playoffs. I'm looking at 81 to 84. 32.2 points per game on basically plus 5.5% true shooting relative to league average, all while he's averaging double-digit free throws in both contexts. Like, and it's crazy, too, because he has such a unique game. Like, Dantley's not this athletic freak. It's so much more based on, like, technique and footwork and all that little stuff. Like, he's such a unique scorer, but again, it didn't lead to anything. And he was one of the names that my dad brought up, and like I considered him because the numbers are ridiculous, but
yeah,
it didn't translate to winning. So did it matter?
It's rare that hyper efficiency can also mean empty calories, but there are certain players who are so damaging to their team in certain ways. Like, this is not purely about scoring value, but just like holistically as a basketball player. I think Zach LaVine is one of those guys in today's NBA, right? Where he can give you whatever, 23 to 25 a game on really good efficiency, but he is ultimately such a negative player in the team context in so many ways. For Dantley, I think that was very much the case when you look at the negative passing value and the negative defensive value. But even as a scorer, again, he was not as good as the numbers would suggest, not as impactful. Well, and when I say the numbers, I mean just pure scoring volume and efficiency. There are better numbers we can look at to tell the story. And even when we talk about efficiency, right? Again, turnovers are not incorporated in those conversations enough. Dantley was a turnover machine, considering he never passed the ball and was still frequently up around 3.5, 4 turnovers a game. That's taking a chunk out of his scoring efficiency that true shooting percentage isn't going to reflect. That's kind of a while to spend on Adrian Dantley, considering he's not even an honorable mention for me. But yeah, he is the kind of guy who NBA fans today, like NBA Twitter, nerd NBA fans, would absolutely hate. Free throw merchant. Like, yeah, good scoring numbers, but the impact sucks. So shout out Adrian Dantley, I guess. Okay, in terms of my most honorable mentions, I could see this guy being on your list. Kawhi from 2019 to 2021, I just left off. The regular season numbers are great. It's really the playoff numbers, though. 27.7 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 6% relative true shooting. He doesn't quite have the volume to get on my list, but my goodness, just relentlessly effective and efficient in a playoff setting. That crazy combination of elite ball handling, elite strength, always playing at his own pace, and absurd shot making from the mid-range, from beyond the arc. That combination of on and off ball scoring. Kawhi, like, it's not really any knock on him. It's more so just the bar here is crazy high, and he doesn't quite meet that volume threshold to get on.
Kawhi's a good shout. I mean, if you could limit it to like one like single season peaks, like Kawhi certainly would be here. You know, that 2019 run's all-time special. The shot making, the strength. Kawhi's a good honorable mention, but I didn't lose sleep over not having Kawhi on my list.
All right, well, I'll give my next shout out to a guy who, again, could be on your list. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where we differ here. Another active legend, Nikola Jokic, one of my toughest cuts, not on my list. Not somebody who people think of as a scorer first. Logan is flabbergasted.
Wow. Wow. This is...
How interesting.
Oh my God. I think this might be the most shocked I've ever been on this show.
Wow.
Holy
really?
shit. Are you serious right now, Carson?
I am serious.
Carson, you, more so than any other person on the planet, you know, it's not just because I do with this show with you.
Yeah.
You have spread more Jokic propaganda on the internet, on the airwaves, in our society, more than anyone I know, and he doesn't make your scoring list. Like, dude, this is literally the most shocked I have ever been in the history of Nerd Sesh.
Wow.
Please enlighten me.
It really just comes down to the fact that he doesn't quite have the volume, and the playoff efficiency isn't nearly as insane as it is in the regular season. He's really close. Yeah.
I know I made this distinction when we did our top 10 passers episode where I was like, I'm not going to try to knock guys who weren't as effective scorers. What do you do with the elite playmakers of the game? Because frankly, I think Jokic is almost unstoppable as a scorer.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. I have long said that I think Jokic is underrated as a scorer. Before Shai took the leap that he did last year, I was adamant that Jokic was the best scorer in basketball and had been for several years, better than Luka, better than Giannis, better than whoever other people were putting up, even better than Embiid, right? As Embiid was putting up his ridiculous regular season numbers because of exactly what you're saying. When Jokic decides to scale up the volume, when he decides to become a scorer, he is damn near unstoppable. But the reality is the bar to get on this list is extremely high. In the regular season, Jokic has that ability to just be so ridiculously efficient. Like, over the last 4 years, which is the peak that I choose for him, 23 to 26, regular season, 26.5 league-adjusted points per 75 possessions on better than plus 9% relative true shooting. Again, he is not a major volume scorer, but he's still able to give you really good volume with just absurd efficiency because of the combination of unstoppable paint touch that I talk about all the time, the ability to be 65% plus on those floaters and hooks, the ability to be the most efficient volume post scorer in the league, and then have all these dimensions of elite play finishing. If it's off the roll with the floater game, if it's the pick and pop game, the ability to bring off ball value as a scorer, right? Curling off of screens, the ability to do it from multiple levels, crazy efficient at the rim, crazy historically efficient, the GOAT of paint touch, right? In the paint non-restricted area, and then being about a 50% mid-range shooter and shooting in the high 30s from three over these last couple years. Like, he's got so many elements of such a great scorer. But if you look at the playoffs, 25.4 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 4% relative true shooting. I do think we have seen him struggle at times to dial up the volume and efficiency simultaneously over the last couple of postseasons. If that's from teams who have a truly elite, monstrous post defender, like an Ivica Zubac, who was able to give him some trouble, if that's from teams deploying the strategy of, all right, let's guard him with a massive body in the post and then also have a roamer helping full time like a Rudy Gobert who can cut into his paint scoring diet just a little bit, or if it's with teams who are able to really swarm him, kind of overwhelm him physically with a bunch of double teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder. I just think we've seen that formula for teams to knock down his scoring volume and efficiency enough to leave him off this list. I compare him to the guy at number 10, and I just think the guy at number 10 is ultimately a more complete self-creator because of his ability to initiate from further out as a true isolationist and high post scorer. And then that guy's also an elite play finisher. And ultimately just the playoff volume and efficiency was better for that guy. I do think at times the reliance in terms of self-creation on purely playing out of the post limits Jokic's volume potential compared to some other guys who are able to initiate from the perimeter just because it's easier to double the post, basically. So Jokic is an incredible all-around scorer. I am a propagandist of his, but it's more so just the bar was crazy, crazy high. Logan is shocked.
I don't believe this. We've been doing this show a very long time.
Yeah.
I feel
years.
like I just got hit with an RPG, man, to the head. Holy shit.
I'm interested in this. Like,
I think we are going to have such drastically different lists, man. Oh, my God.
Probably. It's like, okay, if you can create a clean one-on-one post-up for Jokic, I think that's one of the most unstoppable plays that there is. But again, I do think that there are more ways to diminish his scoring volume than there are for, like, let's use somebody like a Dirk Nowitzki, okay? Spoiler alert, that's the guy in my number 10 spot. That's the guy who I'm talking about, like, because of the variety of ways in which he can create for himself. And then you get to the perimeter players, and it's like, there's really no way to limit the scoring volume of a Kobe Bryant. And he could have that crazy volume and not have Jokic level efficiency, but in the playoffs, the scoring efficiency relative to era, of course, is actually not that far off between the two. That's where I just barely leave Jokic off.
I mean, I understand the argument, but I do not agree with it.
Interesting. Well,
wow.
It sounds like we'll have this conversation again later on, so we can revisit this. I have another big man who's a brutal cut. This is crazy how long we're spending on honorable mentions, but I guess it's just going to be a marathon episode, baby. We got to. I mean, there's so many dudes who need a shout. Akeem from 93 to 95. Really tough cut, and it's really all about the playoffs. The regular season resume is very good, but not top 10 level. 25.6 league adjusted points per 75 on plus 3% relative true shooting. In the playoffs, though, he scales that volume up, 27.5 league adjusted points per 75 on plus 3% relative true shooting, maintains the efficiency, and the 94 and 95 runs, I mean, leads the playoff field in points per game back-to-back years, obviously en route to back-to-back NBA titles. Just incredible, the difficult shot making that he had, how well that held up against elite playoff defenses because there was really no way to cut into his volume, right? He can self-create a shot, a fadeaway, a face-up jumper that is not hyper-efficient, but still relatively efficient, and you can't keep him from getting to that over and over again. That's the ultimate testament to Akeem, and it's the fact that he was a scoring playoff riser. Still, though, I don't think the volume or efficiency is quite good enough to get on this list. He did live off of tough shots. He couldn't self-create with the volume of, like, a couple of centers who I do have above him, and then some of these truly great perimeter scorers. So that's why I just leave Akeem off.
Hakeem's a good shout. Now that we're this far down, I really think that this guy's probably going to be on your list too, so I don't even know if I want to get into it.
Interesting.
I might just pause. You can keep going, man. I'm
Sure.
Actually, the fact that we haven't gotten to this guy yet
really
makes me think that he may be on your list. We'll see.
Is it Wilt Chamberlain, Logan?
Bruh.
What? There's a question.
Did you leave Wilt off your list?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. My dad is going to flame your cracker ass. Holy shit. Oh, my God, dude. He's about to dunk his nuts in your mouth.
Okay. Well,
that's
he can
crazy.
Try. Well, he's never seen my rim protection.
That's crazy.
When it comes down to scoring value, I don't think that it is. Like,
bro, I tried to make this argument to my dad, and he said, Logan, you can't.
Well, stop letting your dad push you around, man, Logan. Be a free thinker. Be a thought leader, and join my wave of leaving Wilt off this list. Like, Wilt's conversation, always interesting. I'm extremely high on 1967 and 1968 Wilt. I think it's one of the 5 highest peaks in the history of this game. I think that was when he just completely maximized his abilities with hyper-efficient scoring, maxing out his playmaking value, being the best offensive hub he ever was, leading the best team offenses he did, maxing out his defensive value as one of the best defenders we've ever seen. Like, that Wilt, absolute mega freak when it comes to impact on the basketball game. Wilt, from 1962 to 1964, when he was putting up his biggest scoring numbers, ultimately not nearly as impactful a basketball player. And I do think his scoring alone is overrated. Like, when we talk about the impact that scoring has on team offense, that's where Wilt doesn't hold up against these other all-time greats. His offenses overall in this span were below average. And part of that is, I mean, he was such a crazy, like, shoot first player. He never passed the basketball at this stage in his career. And you can say, okay, that's more overall offensive value. But I do think, I mean, just the complete miscalibration of scoring to passing, I think that even hurts his scoring value, in my opinion, because he could have been more efficient if he just had a better balance there. And then you have the major playoff dropping. Like, in the playoffs, 24.4 league-adjusted points per 75 possessions on plus 3.5% relative true shooting. Like, that volume efficiency is just not close to the guys who are on my list. And then the free throws were an issue, like the major problems actually converting those opportunities. This was the stage in his career when he was best as a free throw shooter, but he was still like up in the mid to high 50s. I'll be honest, dude, Wilt, tough cut, not one of the absolute toughest for me.
I respect the argument. When I was creating the skeleton for this list, I thought about that. And that was a big dilemma, too, the version of Wilt. What version do you go with? Because I unequivocally think the best version of Wilt is the 66 to 68 version when he tapped into that playmaking. But, like,
right.
And I agree, some of the playoff numbers, like you're talking about him regressing a little bit, like, against certain matchups, he really struggled. There's no way in hell I was going to leave Wilt Chamberlain off this list.
Really?
I mean, what do you think about the argument that he didn't respect his teammates enough to pass him the ball?
I mean, I think it's a shitty argument. I think it's a terrible argument. Like, this is something that we see from a lot of basketball players who are super gifted scorers, right? When they're 18 years old, okay, they've been so dramatically better than their teammates for their entire lives that, like, they don't really have that faith oftentimes to pass the basketball at the level that they should. But the reality is, there is absolutely a synergy between scoring and passing where if you are not creating opportunities for your teammates, not only are opposing teams able to key in on you so aggressively as a scorer purely that you become more predictable and easier to limit in terms of efficiency as a scorer, also creating open shots for your teammates is better than you taking difficult shots, even if you are a more gifted scorer than your teammates. Like, it's just no coincidence that Wilt led to his best team offenses when he figured that balance out, when he became a selfless basketball player. I don't put any credence into that, oh, my teammates suck stuff, especially because he had good teammates in the early 60s. I mean, he played with Paul Arizin, right? He played with some really good basketball players and just could not get good value out of his team offenses. So I don't buy that at all, really. And I do think the playoff dropping is significant. And I do think, like, again, obviously he put up these monster numbers, but there are other players where if you allow them to shoot 35, 40 times in a basketball game, right, they can put up monster volume numbers. Obviously, volume scoring at that level is clearly a skill, right? And this is why Wilt is in this conversation. But I do think the volume when adjusted is not nearly as impressive as the raw numbers. Even in the regular season, 28.5 league adjusted points per 75 on plus 5.5% relative true shooting. Very good. Not all-time great efficiency. I'm standing on this, dude. Wilt, to me, not one of the 10 most valuable scorers at his peak that we've ever seen.
I mean, respect to you for making the argument. Wow. I'm going to leave my comments for Wilt. He's on my list.
All right. Well, I could tell that. Who is another honorable mention for you, Logan? Like, we're going to spend an hour on honorable mentions because that's just the way it is. What are you going to do?
No, I mean, if you want to speed through the rest of your, I really have one more guy that I considered, and this is who I thought that you were going to get to next. I don't have Giannis Antetokounmpo on my list. I would say that 2024 to 2026, Giannis, I actually think he's actively peaking as a scorer right now with how he's actually been able to spread his game out. I don't think that's the be-all, end-all, but when we are talking about playoff dropping and rigidity and play style, I think he is a little bit more susceptible to those playoff drop-offs versus the right defensive coverage. I'm not really even holding the injury stuff against him. I just think we've seen it a few too many times, right? If it's Miami and Bam and then building the wall, like I just think that modern defenses have been able to throw coverages at him that keep him off this list. He's dominant, but the playoff dropping is what keeps him off my list. That's all of my honorable mentions that I really lost sleep over, but I'm fascinated, man. I wonder if you're going to rattle off any more guys that I got on my list.
Yeah, Giannis, one of my outside honorable mentions. I mean, the volume efficiency combo is great. Almost 30 league adjusted points per 75. The efficiency is great. But I do think when we talk about the ability to produce regardless of matchup, that's where Giannis is just not there in terms of half-court polish, half-court effectiveness up against the guys who I am considering here. Like you said, I think his scoring peak has really been 2024 to now, and it's tough because we have a limited playoff sample of him in that time. I mean, we really have one playoff series in which he played against the team that is like maybe least equipped to guard him, the team that he has just absolutely owned, the Pacers. But 2023, right, that was a really difficult playoff series for him against the Heat where he really struggled as a scorer in that series. And overall, again, even though I think this is pre-peak Giannis, you do see some of these same core half-court limitations lead to a lot of playoff offensive underperformance for him all the way from 2019 through 2023, right, where the efficiency is not the same, the volume isn't quite the same in the playoffs. So yeah, not on my list. I will say there's a couple more contemporaries who were very close for me. Embiid, 22 to 24, another guy like Harden where the regular season peak is one of the absolute best we've ever seen. I mean, 33.3 league adjusted points per 75. People talk about Embiid being the most productive permanent scorer in NBA history. That is the highest adjusted volume number of anybody that we're going to talk about today. It's ridiculous. And the efficiency plus 6% relative true shooting. However, the playoff drop, looking at 22 to 24, and like Harden, there is, again, more evidence of playoff dropping that even predates this specific peak, like recurring year after year with Embiid. But 24.6 league adjusted points per 75 in the playoffs on even true shooting percentage. Just not nearly good enough playoff production. And again, recurring issues that you can specifically point to as skill set things and say, okay, part of it, his body breaking down, sure. But another part of it being like just repeatedly his jump shooting failing him in these playoff runs where some of those like reliable face up and rhythm dribble pull-ups that he usually can get to and they're so effective, they diminish in effectiveness. And then the three ball too often left him. And then he wasn't able to get to the free throw line at quite the same rate. And he had this scoring rigidity and wasn't able to deliver on his bread and butter stuff in the playoffs. So he's off my list. And then Luka Doncic, same years actually for the peak, 22 to 24. Regular season, 30.1 league adjusted points per 75 on plus 2.5% relative true shooting. Playoffs, not as good. 27.9 league adjusted points per 75 on negative 1% relative true shooting. It's really just the efficiency not being there. Like that, relative true shooting percentage, worse than anybody who's going to be on my list. And that doesn't account for the fact that his scoring turnover percentage is higher than some other great guards. Overall, I just think, I mean, there's so much that is fantastic about Luka's scoring arsenal, the overall paint touch scoring and the free throw rate at this time and a lot of great shot making, but the perimeter shot just not consistent enough. The three ball not being efficient in that 24 playoff run, not being outside of the 24 regular season, really a reliable high efficiency shot for him. And then there is a scoring rigidity with him when it comes to his style that I would give him a little bit of a tax for. But ultimately, I just think if you look at the numbers, even those, like when you make the necessary adjustments, really are not top 10 caliber, but he's obviously deserving of an honorable mention.
Yeah, Embiid, I did think about, admittedly, just because of how great he was in the regular season, but just because he never did it in a playoff run. I think Embiid's going to end up just being, I mean, he might be already, but he's going to end up being one of the greatest what-ifs of all time if he could have just avoided one of these major knee injuries. The fact that he was so productive after so many debilitating injuries, like, he's such a special talent, man. It's disappointing that we never got to see that fully play itself out.
It is. And another issue with Embiid in the playoff dropping, obviously, is just like major passing limitations where he could be a black hole offensively, and really high turnover numbers in those playoff runs, where if you look at really everything until 2024 was like the first time that he was able to create assists at a solid level for his teammates. But I mean, year after year, more turnovers than assists, often markedly so. I do think that diminished his overall offensive value in the playoffs, so I keep him off because of that. I've got two more honorable mentions, Logan. Two more real ones. They're both great shooting guards. Dwayne Wade, 2009 to 2011, just one of the best slashers ever. And not hyper efficient, but quite efficient. Regular season over 29 league adjusted points per 75. Playoffs almost 28. And he's between +3 and +4% relative true shooting. It's just a crazy high bar to get on here is pretty much what it comes down to. I don't really have a knock on D Wade. I think even though he was just a good, not great, like over-the-top shot maker when it comes to the perimeter shot, he still had that as a counter, and he could get to the rim with this crazy volume and get to the line. Like, D-Wade was amazing. Again, it's more so just there were guys who reached higher heights of volume, efficiency, and also D-Wade, a good off-ball scorer, which does matter. And then George Gervin, man. Somebody who has to be shouted out in these conversations. I believe a 4-time scoring champ. And in the regular season, looking at 78 to 82, his 5-year peak, 28.9 league-adjusted points per 75 on almost +5% relative true shooting. In the playoffs, almost 28 league-adjusted points per 75 on +3% relative true shooting. Just an absolute bucket. Another guy where there's not really any substantial knock I have on him. He's just not quite as good as the dudes on the list, and we'll see how high that bar is as we actually get into our official top 10. But that's pretty much it. Shout out to Bob McAdoo. I mean, he's not going to be on this list, but what he did from 74 to 76 was pretty crazy. Considered T-Mac 02 to 04, he doesn't have the efficiency. Oscar 62 to 66, great efficiency, doesn't have the adjusted volume. Those are all of the guys who I even remotely considered for this list. This episode is sponsored by Fabletics. Guys, I love Fabletics. I really do. This little number I'm wearing right here, this whole thing, Fabletics. My closet lined with Fabletics. So if you want to dress like me, then you know where to go. I mean, this just lines up perfectly with my style, man. It's athletic, it's leisure wear, it's comfortable, it's multi-purpose, and it's stylish. It's stylish as all get out, man. I put this thing on, my girlfriend goes, "Who's that? Who's that guy?" And then I look, and there's actually nobody there. I don't have a girlfriend. I live alone in a hovel under a bridge. But if you guys want to be like me, if you guys want to dress up like me and cosplay like me, Carson Breber, C-Brebs the Kid, it will be most accurate if you do it in Fabletics. I really do recommend this stuff, guys. It's really high quality. It's a good price. And with Fabletics, you can take care of your whole wardrobe in one place. They've got it all. Hoodies, sweatshirts, comfortable shirts, athletic shirts, shorts, sweatpants, whatever you want, they've got it. Fabletics already has incredible deals, and we've got an exclusive offer just for our listeners. Get 80% off everything when you sign up as a VIP. And yes, that includes Jamar's first drop. Jamar Chase, he's got a great collection with Fabletics. They got all sorts of great collections. They go together like peanut butter and jelly. So just head over to fabletics.com/nerdsesh, take a quick style quiz, and be sure to select NerdSesh when prompted to unlock your 80% off. That's fabletics.com/nerdsesh. And now, with all that being said, Logan, we can get in to your number 10 spot. Who do you have?
In my 10 spot, I have Larry Bird, and...
Whoa! Whoa! Whoa!
Yeah.
This I did not see coming.
Yeah, I mean, Larry I had to have on here just because of how easily he can fit into any offense and how he can seamlessly get his buckets off ball. Like, I think some people wouldn't consider Larry to be on the list just because he never led the league in scoring in the regular season or in the playoffs, but I just think Larry's so damn efficient. You can put him anywhere, and he can get his buckets. 26 points per game on 57% true shooting, one of the game's elite scorers. And again, it's that malleability and portability, I think, when you're looking at him that makes him so easily to fit in anywhere. He's not one of these like elite break you down kind of guys like of the modern era, but I think you could put Larry in any era, and I think he would work. In the regular season, he had 6 free throws a game. When you go to the playoffs, he's got some of that built-in production, too, with 7 a game. That's how I felt when you didn't have Jokic on your list, man. I'm like, what the I couldn't believe it. I just think Larry's volume is what I hold against him. Like, I think that's what keeps him from just climbing higher on my list. And I think there are guys that have more physical imposition on the game that are just more unstoppable with the ball in their hands, breaking guys down. But I couldn't leave Larry off this list. Again, I think I have a more controversial guy that isn't on my list that is going to be more shocking than just having Larry in my 10 spot. But, yeah, there are just guys I trust more to get their own look with the ball in their hands, despite Larry being one of the game's most elite off-ball scorers of all time. And again, guys who I think have a little bit more of that physical, unstoppable kind of imposition on the game. But I couldn't leave Larry off my list.
I am absolutely shocked, Logan. Absolutely shocked. I read off 14 honorable mentions. Larry Bird is not one of them. And he'd probably be one of the next few guys after that. But wow. I just
Larry's not even on your
really
list?
see the case. No, I mean, I don't think he's a top 20 scorer in terms of peak in NBA history. I think he's one of the greatest offensive players, but I think that's a combination of, first and foremost, elite playmaking value, overall offensive feel and versatility when it comes to the ability to stress defenses even with like off-ball movement, always make the right decision. If I'm ranking the best aspects of Larry Bird as an offensive player, self-created scoring for me is probably last. I mean, well, maybe you could say like offensive rebounding, but he was even really good at that. Like he was really good at that. I think the volume is just not nearly there. He's at about 23 league-adjusted points per 75 possessions. If you look at the playoff runs, like in his peak years, 84 to 87, and the efficiency is good, not great.
What we were doing with the top 10 passers, I didn't want to penalize guys who were elite playmakers too. Again, there's always a balance to be struck when we're doing these debates, but I didn't want to hold it against Larry that he was such a brilliant playmaker and passer and had such great feel. And I think he's got immaculate off-ball scoring value with where he can find space. And I think he's got some of the greatest touch of all time where he can do it at every single level. So, no, when I think of Larry, again, I completely agree with you. You think about everything that made him great as a player, but I also do think he is just an elite scorer of the basketball. I think you can drop him in any era. I think you can drop him against any team. I think he's going to find a way to get his buckets. And just because he was selfless, I don't want to hold that against him.
That's
for
not
the
what I'm
player
saying.
that he was.
That's not what I'm saying. I mean, the scoring is just not there. And there were limitations that he had where he could struggle to score with volume against truly elite athletes. He could struggle with length. He was not the level of ball handler to be able to self-create with like real big volume. Jokic gets in certain matchups where he is unstoppable as a scorer, and he has aspects of play finishing that are more efficient, and he has like this truly overwhelming combination of strength and paint touch out of the post where, I mean, he can produce, again, a plus 9%, plus 10% relative true shooting for you at greater volume than Bird, who's going to hover more in like that plus 3, plus 4% relative true shooting on lower volume than anybody else. You know, he didn't have those hyper efficient paths like a Steph Curry or a Jokic, and he couldn't crank up the volume like a Kobe. You know, he wasn't close to the level of self-creator that like a James Harden is. I just don't think Larry Bird honestly even belongs in these conversations when we're talking purely about scoring. I am shocked that he's in your top 10. I really am. I just don't think it's there.
I'm sure Larry would love to hear you say that.
I mean, I think Larry's fantastic.
Larry
I'm super
dropped,
high
what,
on Larry,
40
but not
with
because
his
of
left
his scoring.
hand one time, bro?
Bro, that's not what we're talking about on this list. If you want to do that,
dude,
you know how many times James Harden scored 60 with his left hand?
He always had the rock in his hands. I'm just saying, look, man,
Bro.
because Larry, I'm not going to knock Larry for playing with great players and playing unselfishly.
I'm not, bro. You're not listening to what I'm saying if you think that's my criticism.
I just think Larry could I think Larry could impose himself when he needed to, and I don't think volume is the be all end all. I do think it's important, but
the volume or the efficiency is not in all-time heights with Larry.
I just think Larry belongs here.
He did not have the path to self-create a shot diet at the volume or efficiency of the top 10 dudes of all time. I feel very strongly about that. Larry is an amazing, amazing player, but again, that is because of the totality of all his great strengths. A number of offensive things I would point to before scoring value. I really, really don't see it, especially over Logan. If you're talking about white boys on this list, Dirk Nowitzki as a
was
scorer,
in my 11 spot.
clears.
I'm not acting like it wasn't. It was hard, but I went with Larry.
He clears, bro. I have Dirk in my 10 spot, and it is 2009 to 2011. I think his regular season peak was earlier, 05 to 07, but he really struggled in those playoffs. This is the stretch where Dirk's playoff peak is absolutely ludicrous. Like, in the regular season these years, 26.3 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 4% relative true shooting. Really good numbers. Not quite reaching the heights of regular season volume of all the other dudes on this list, though, pretty much. In the playoffs, though, 28.3 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 8% relative true shooting. Out of all of these players, Logan, all the great scorers, honorable mentions included, he is one of just 2 players to ever clear 28 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 8% relative true shooting in the playoffs over a 3+ year peak. The only other guy to ever hit both those thresholds, KD with the Warriors from 2017 to 2019. Dirk was one of the most versatile scorers ever. He was extremely efficient. There's just this incredible ability he had to be so efficient out of isolations and post-ups, consistently at around like 90th percentile efficiency at massive volume on those play types, because he was such an absurdly gifted shot maker, 50% from the mid-range over these years. The shot making there was ridiculous, and the variety as a shot maker when you consider the size and the elite craft, the use of pump fakes, the masterful footwork, the ability always to create just the sliver of space that he needed to shoot over top of you. Absolutely incredible. His driving ability, his strength always remains underrated. His ball handling at that size as a true 7-footer, really damn good. The ability to play through contact and physicality at this stage in his career was the best it ever was, and I really believe that's why he held up better in the playoffs. Massive free throw generator too. I mean, especially in his peak athletic regular seasons, but in these playoff runs too, 8.7 free throw attempts per game. And so on top of this fact that he's one of the greatest isolationist and mid-high post players ever who can self-create with such massive volume at such great efficiency, he was a super effective off-ball player. Lethal shooter on spot-ups, coming off screens. He could launch super effective quick attacks off-ball coming around screens. And then he's shooting 39% from 3 over these years at relatively low volume, but just a lethal play finishing jump shooter. Really good in the pick and roll and pick and pop game as a play finisher. Just a truly elite combination of self-creation and play finishing. And I think Dirk gets underrated sometimes as both a scorer and as an offensive player, because obviously low assist numbers and not crazy scoring volume, right? No years where he's averaging 30+ points per game. And so I think some people are kind of like, all right, the volume counting stats aren't there, but his scoring skill set was so versatile, so efficient, so valuable, his scoring threat so constant that he really did fuel so many great offenses. I mean, if you look at this stretch, the Mavs offensive rating was 9 points better with him on the court. They had a +4.5 relative offensive rating with him out there. Very good offense when he was on the court, very bad offense when he was off the court. And this was just a continuation of Dirk leading really good offenses every year. These were his 10th to 12th straight seasons leading a top 10 offense. Previously, he led 4 number 1 offenses and 8 top 5 offenses. So I am extremely high on Dirk as a scorer. Again, I think that playoff resume he put together over these 3 years, one of the greatest we've ever seen. The reasons I would knock him, his volume couldn't reach the same heights as some other guys, and he could be slowed down a little bit by really elite athletes and double teams just because of that lack of quickness at this age, where you could physically overwhelm him just a bit, but we're really nitpicking at this point, and I do think Dirk belongs in the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, Dirk would just leave you feeling helpless. Dirk's one of the first guys that I ever really, truly watched as a kid, and that version, man, get the ball to him on the block, get the ball to him around the free throw line, immaculate touch, that high release point, you can't even touch the shot. Like, Dirk's the man, and he is the guy that I struggled with most leaving off this list. The most impressive thing to me is how much better he got into the playoffs, like how he could just crank it up. And, again, you couldn't stop him. There's nothing a lot you could do with him. I think he had to go through those trials and tribulations of getting beat as a younger player. You know, that was the big knock on him until 2011, until he won the championship. He's a playoff dropper. He can't get it done. He's a choker. And that molded and manifested itself into that run. Dirk just became even better. I do think he was my first guy off, but I do think he belongs here.
If we are ranking the skill-based big whites, and I don't want to do that, Logan, but I mean, we're just talking about Larry Bird. Now we're talking about Dirk Nowitzki. You're shocked I don't have Jokic on my list. Like, I do think that Bird is clearly third out of that group. I think that Dirk and Jokic, both much more efficient play finishers. Jokic with what he could do in the paint, Dirk a lot of what he could do as a jump shooter. And I think they both had much clearer paths to like super efficient self-created offense at volume because of what Dirk can do from the mid-high post, as we're talking about, where he's just a walking mismatch, right? Who has the combination of the size and the strength needed to guard him? Who has the discipline to be able to deal with all of his up fakes and not bite on the wrong one where you foul him, or now he's created the space he needs for a jump shot? And then Jokic, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's that combination of strength and touch, but then also he in his own right, I mean, ridiculous footwork, and his fadeaway is hyper efficient. Like, Larry just didn't have a path to that level of efficiency at self-created volume. So that is why, again, I have Dirk here. Jokic is one of my toughest cuts. Larry, I think, also just a little bit easier to overwhelm physically and athletically as a scorer. Part of it being he didn't quite have physical advantages like Dirk, who's a 7-footer and can shoot over top of anybody, and Jokic, who is a 7-footer and also 285 pounds and ridiculously strong. All that being said, Logan, who's in your 9 spot?
I've got Kobe here in my 9 spot, and I think for a lot of people, Kobe would probably be top 5, top 3. I do want to give Kobe his flowers. I went with 06 to 08 Kobe. On his career, he's a 2-time regular season scoring champ and a 3-time playoff scoring champ. During this run, he's given you 31.7 points per game on 57.1% true shooting. And the most impressive thing to me about Kobe is how he could maintain that efficiency into the playoffs with such a tough shot diet. We've talked about it a lot on this show. I think Kobe is the best difficult shot maker of all time in really this era of just bogged down offense, bad spacing, lumbering guys, not a ton of movement. Kobe could still produce no matter the circumstances, right? Bad teammates, doesn't matter. Bad spacing, doesn't matter. Kobe can fill it up. And his shooting from different ranges of the court is truly amazing to me. 62% within 3 feet, not a number that's going to blow you away, but 50% from 3 to 10 feet, 46% from 10 to 16 feet, 41% 16 feet out to the three-point line, and a 35% three-point shooter over this three-year run. Kobe could do it at every single level. He could get downhill during the regular season. He's just under 10 free throw attempts per game. In the playoffs, he's at 8.5 per game. He does have this rare blend of like the ability to give you that kind of volume and still be a relatively efficient player. Again, he's at 4 to 5% above league average true shooting at this time. The reason Kobe isn't higher for me, and I feel like I've made this debate on here before, there are guys that I just think could routinely more often get to more efficient shot types. Part of the reason why Kobe had to take these tough shots was because he wasn't able to get to some of these more efficient looks. But, again, I don't think that should be a thing that keeps him off of this list, right? I'll do a very simple one. A LeBron, right? That's always a typical debate. And a lot of people will go, oh, Kobe's so much better. You know, the versatility. LeBron could just get downhill at a more unstoppable kind of level because he's one of the strongest, most explosive, physically imposing players. And I personally, again, because this could be a difference of opinion, I value that more. I value that ability to get to that kind of shot type. I mentioned the inside 3 feet mark. LeBron at his peak is up near 77% inside 3 feet. And so he doesn't have the touch in the intermediate game the way Kobe does, in terms of difficult shot-making ability, but he can routinely more often get to that unstoppable kind of look, and I value that a little bit more. So I think Kobe has to be in this top 10 list. I would have felt wrong leaving him off, but I do think there are some skill set and some style choices that you can point to that leave him from being higher on this list, but Kobe's got to be here.
It just comes down to effectiveness. It's really that simple. If we were ranking aesthetics, if we were ranking artistry, if we were ranking footwork and difficult shot making, I mean, Kobe is absolutely one of a kind. But like you said, when it comes to effectiveness, he's certainly not going to have a case for being the best ever. I do have him at number 9 as well. I think this is the lowest that you can have Kobe. I wouldn't have considered him any lower, but this is where I have him. 2006 to 2010, I went with a longer run for Kobe, 5 years. I wanted to get his best regular seasons in there, which is 06 to 07. His best playoff runs were 2008 to 2010. And so I kind of just looped it all in here in this 5-year stretch. And I do think those postseasons are the most impressive aspect of Kobe's scoring arsenal to me. What he did from 08 to 2010, maintaining his volume, maintaining and even slightly improving his efficiency. It's a really rare thing. And volume is what stands out so much with Kobe. And we praise efficiency a lot, but the ability to score with volume is absolutely essential, right? When it comes to the level of score that you really are, the ability, regardless of coverage, regardless of matchup, regardless of opponent, to be able to get to your spots. And part of the value there is just having a shit ton of spots. If you can still deliver that, well, that's a great testament to your scoring resiliency, and that's where Kobe just excels. Regular season over these years, 29.4 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 2.5% relative true shooting. Playoffs, 28.6 league-adjusted points per 75, plus 3% relative true shooting. I do think the knock on Kobe is the lack of elite efficiency up against this crowd. And pretty much whenever you hear people criticize Kobe as a scorer, as an offensive player, or whatever, they'll talk about efficiency as a criticism. I do think, again, up against the best of the best scorers ever, yes, Kobe's efficiency doesn't stack up. However, Kobe was still a very efficient scorer, especially when you consider the creation burden that he had. Like if you go play type by play type, right? And if you say, okay, how efficient is Kobe as a post-up player relative to other players posting up? How efficient is he as an isolation player relative to other players playing out of isolation? Pick and roll player, all those on-ball self-created play types, he's consistently up above like 80th percentile efficiency. And he just had such incredible variety as a scorer, like truly ridiculous depth of counters, unparalleled difficult shot making. And of course, people romanticize that. It's an incredibly beautiful thing to watch. Again, not always the most effective when you compare it to somebody who can just work their way to a more hyper efficient shot. But the fact that Kobe was able to walk into any playoff environment and say, I can get to my stuff in so many different ways. I can do it out of the post. I can do it out of isolation. I can do it out of pick and roll. I don't have to get deep into the paint to be an effective scorer, right? I can brutalize you from this mid-range area where if you try to load up on me, good luck. You really can't take away my bread and butter shots that I live off of. And then you combine that with the fact that he was a damn good off-ball scorer, willing to play off-ball, super effective as a jump shooter, curling off of screens, good feel as a cutter. Like, Kobe was an incredible scorer, and his playoff efficiency really is pretty damn good. Like, it's a bit better than his regular season efficiency, which is truly exceptional. And again, you compare it to like a Nikola Jokic, okay, we think of as the pillar of regular season efficiency. And in the playoffs, I mean, Jokic is plus 1% relative true shooting better, while Kobe is generating significantly more volume. I just think he's a phenomenal scorer. Now, obviously, I'm still not the highest on him, and the reason for that is there were guys who just had a superpower, a more overwhelming advantage that led to more efficient offense. If it's what Shaq could do in the paint, if it's what Steph could do from beyond the arc, if it's what LeBron could do downhill at the rim, ultimately, the value of those superpowers gives those guys the slight edge over Kobe, even though Kobe is the more versatile scorer. I think the scoring of a Shaq, a Steph, slightly more valuable than Kobe's, but Kobe's versatility was truly outstanding.
I'm glad you mentioned the off-ball scoring, because that's a point that really needs to get hammered home when you're talking about Kobe. You can get caught up so much in the ball handling and, like you mentioned, the aesthetics, the difficult shot makings, the fadeaways, the footwork. Kobe's off-ball scoring is up there with some of the greatest of all time, and it's a huge part and a huge reason of why he's got to be on this list along with his on-ball bag. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, phenomenal score of the basketball. That being said, Logan, we've got 8 guys who are higher. So who is in your number 8 spot?
I am thinking if I have the right logic here, and I'm actually going to call a quick audible.
Okay.
I'm going to bump one guy down, but he also has a chance to climb higher on this list, and that's why I'm okay with doing this for the time being. In my 8 spot, and this may be controversial because of where he's at in his career, I have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander here in my 8 spot, and I think Shai belongs here. I think anybody telling you that SGA does not already belong on this list is tripping balls, and they need to go turn on an NBA game. The guy is unbelievable, and he may be the best mid-range scorer I have ever had the privilege of watching in my basketball career. 2024 to 2026 Shai, 55% between 10 to 16 feet. 49% between 3 to 10 feet, 45.5% 16 feet out to the three-point line. Like, the guy has immaculate touch. And one of the things I love about my favorite thing about Shai, and it's very Jordan-esque, his balance. Yeah. I have so rarely seen athletes that are able to rise and fire with such consistency and balance, but also deal with contact on drives to the basket, getting to the rim. The only reason Shai isn't higher on this list is one thing that we mentioned with LeBron. I think there are other athletes that strength component of their game I really value highly, because it provides another avenue of just unstoppability when it comes to the playoffs. But also, that being said, I do think Shai has a real opportunity to climb into 6, 5, maybe top 3 potentially. I don't know. I don't want to put a limit on how high Shai can climb on this list. I think this last playoff run from him was impressive, but I think it is potentially the worst playoff run that we're going to see from him in his career. I think that he's going to be more efficient. I think there's an opportunity for him to score on higher volume. I think, he's improved his three-point shot this year. I can't say any of these things for certain, but I also can't put a cap on him for certain. And so I felt comfortable with some of the established resumes of these guys higher than him, putting him at 8 for the time being. In the regular season over this stretch, 31.5 points per game on 53, 37, 89 splits, 64% true shooting with 9 free throw attempts per game. In the playoffs, also 9 free throw attempts per game with 30 points per game, 47, 32, 85 splits, 57.6% true shooting. And so that's why I say I need to see him maintain that kind of regular season efficiency in the playoffs, but he's got time. I think Shai is in his prime right now. I think there is a potential again for him to get even better. And another feather in his cap, so to speak, when we're talking about his resume as a scorer, and we talk about this all the time, is his ability to keep turnovers low. I think that we can't take for granted, and it's just such a special ability to have this kind of self-creation burden, the ball in your hands this often, this frequently, to repeatedly score with this efficiency at every single level, to keep turnovers low. Like, I think 8 is the lowest you could have SGA at this point in time in the top 10 scorers list. So I think there is a very real possibility for him to climb higher on this list. I think he belongs. And again, to repeat it, I think anybody that is saying he doesn't belong here is just tripping. So I've got SGA here at 8, and I don't think he's done climbing.
This is going to shock everybody, Logan. I have SGA higher. I have SGA at number 5 on my list. Last 3 years, he is averaging in the regular season 31.2 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 6.5% relative true shooting. That volume efficiency combo, I mean, it's absolutely in the top tier of all time when you look at the regular season. And what's hard about ranking Shai right now is not only is he actively playing right now, and we're talking about a guy who has only been at this all-time great level really for these past few years, he's actively getting better. Like, Shai has leveled up this year. Shai leveled up last year from the previous season. So how exactly do you weight those things is kind of the question. This season, Shai is averaging 34.6 points per 75 possessions on plus 9% relative true shooting. It is a scoring season that really only Michael Jordan at his absolute best can touch in terms of this combination of regular season volume and efficiency, and maybe 2016 Steph, but even the volume wasn't quite the same there. Like, it's absolutely unfathomable. And I do think he's the best he's ever been this year, but every single year, this guy is the most efficient on-ball scorer I've ever seen. Like, he's 95th percentile efficiency out of pick and roll and isolation every year. Data Baller has a scoring creation stat, which just measures across all the creation play types: pick and roll, isolation, post up. How does your volume and efficiency rank? This is his third straight year of being 98th percentile or better in both volume and efficiency when it comes to self-creation. This year, Logan, he is 100th percentile in both. He can get wherever he wants on the floor. Like, I would say that about Shai, probably more so than any other player in NBA history, especially when it comes to his comfort and his lethality from anywhere on the floor. He's got all-time great ball handling. He is the best we've ever seen as a ball handler considering his height. He's 6'6", and that comes down to, as you mentioned, this unparalleled ability to protect the ball. Nobody has ever turned the ball over less while having the sort of on-ball load, scoring load that Shai does. But overall, I mean, the ball handling is just extraordinary. The ability to navigate tight windows, right, and string together dribble combinations is absolutely absurd for somebody of his size. He's got this freakish change in pace, and then the body control and the balance and the footwork, as you mentioned, it's unbelievable. You look at a packed paint and you know that somehow, some way, SGA is far and away the best equipped in the NBA to still navigate, pirouette his way all the way to the basket. And if he doesn't do that, guess what? He can get an initial step on you, he can threaten you downhill, and then stop on a dime, spring backwards, and get to still the most lethal mid-range shot in basketball, which is what he possesses. I've done this sort of breakdown before, but when you just think about the scoring proficiency, the efficiency and the volume from Shai at every level, it's unbelievable. He's an 89% free throw shooter who gets to the line 9 times a game. An elite foul drawer and one of the best free throw shooters we've ever seen. By the way, all these numbers are over the last 3 years, so not just this season. He's 70% at the rim. One of the best rim finishing guards we've ever seen because he's got great size. He's 6'6" with a 7-foot wingspan, great length. He's got elite body control and phenomenal touch. The ability to manipulate the spin of the ball is outstanding, and he gets to the rim almost 6 times a game. So one of the all-time great rim pressuring and rim finishing guards, even though he doesn't do it with burst, right? He does it with craft and all these other traits. All-time great there. Inside the paint, outside the restricted area, short-range jumpers. He's over 53% on nearly 6 attempts per game. So he doesn't have to get all the way to the rim to be crazy effective as a scorer. When he does get there, and he gets there as much as just about anybody, he's as good as just about anybody. But if he is facing a truly packed paint, okay, he has one of the best counters in the history of the sport with the short-range jump shot making and then the true mid-range game. He is 51% on nearly 5 attempts per game. Truly, nobody can take that away. His ability to isolate, to get to one of these money shots from the elbows, from the baseline, like there's just no way to keep him, settle down, Logan, I know what I said, from creating space, shooting over top, and being absolutely sensational with these shots. And then he's also 37% from 3 on nearly 5 attempts per game. I've said it before, he is the most versatile on-ball scoring guard in NBA history. He can get to a very efficient shot anywhere, whenever he wants, if you simply put the ball in his hands. And more so than any other guard in NBA history, You put the ball in his hands, he's going to get a good shot up. There's going to be no waste as a scorer because that turnover rate is so extremely low. He's the most complete on-ball scoring guard ever. He's one of the best paint scoring guards ever. He's one of the best mid-range scoring guards ever. He's one of the best transition scoring guards ever, which we cannot leave out here. He's an absolute elite scorer in the full court. And that ability to excel against packed paints as a scorer is truly unique in today's NBA. Like, I would say he is one of the 3 greatest mid-range scorers we've ever seen in today's NBA. I do think that he is the best doing this, and probably KD is still better as a pure mid-range shot maker, but Shai's ability to get to the mid-range with such volume, I think I give him the slight edge in terms of overall mid-range value, but whatever, because KD's also a top 3 mid-range shooter of all time in the history of this game. And the extent to which that scoring value drives truly elite offense is so special. Like, he is one of the most impactful offensive players ever, Shai. His offense is 9 points better when he's on the court over the last 3 years. They have a +7 relative offensive rating with him on. That is like all-time offense. I mean, that is exceptional stuff, and he's doing that without other reliable creators alongside him, with up-and-down spot-up shooters who are often stagnant, one-dimensional offensive players. Shai's scoring value carries the offense to those heights. He is easily one of the greatest scorers we've ever seen. Like, I just don't know how you can look at that combination of volume and efficiency and say, yeah, he can't be in the top 5. Now, I do understand people saying maybe this is a little premature because we've seen 2 playoff runs and he hasn't quite reached his regular season heights in either one. The playoff numbers for Shai, 27.3 league adjusted points per 75 on even true shooting percentage. The volume isn't the same. The efficiency really is not the same. I understand that point. I just feel like I know what I'm seeing with Shai, and I'm fine if people think this is a little premature. I think the bigger the sample size gets in the playoffs, the more outstanding his production, his resume is going to be. I do think, again, this year he is a better player than he was even last year, and even last year he got better as series went along and as he got used to the coverages and the looks that he was seeing. With great playoff runs, Shai can and will move even higher on this list for me, but already, I think his skill set is built to perfectly translate to the playoffs. This is not like James Harden or Joel Embiid, where there is some skill failure, some lack of variety, something that you can point to and say that's going to be a problem. I mean, Shai, because of his ability to dominate the intermediate game and to get to his spots no matter what, like, he's literally perfectly built to be an all-time great playoff scorer. I just think we got to see another run, and I think it'll happen. And I already think, I mean, he's been really good in difficult offensive circumstances over the last 2 playoff runs, but he hasn't been what he's been in the last 2 regular seasons. I'm not going to say that. If he had, Shai would probably already be even higher on this list for me.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I'm just waiting to see it more. And once I see it in the playoffs from Shai, I would be comfortable with moving him up even higher. I just think he's the perfect modern-day guard. Everything that he can do, the volume, again, the efficiency. I think Shai's perfect. So, yeah, I think he's going to reach there for me one day. Again, I just need to see it sustained over 1 to 2 more playoff runs, I feel like, and I'll be there.
I get it. I think there is a very real path where Shai ends up number 2 on this list when all is said and done. Like, the combination of insane rim pressure with all-time shot making that he has, it's crazy, bro. It's crazy. It is Jordan-esque, truly. The only edge that MJ has is the off-ball value. Well, I mean, also just MJ is 1 of 1 as a scorer. But, I mean, what Shai can do with the ball in his hands, delivering that sort of volume and efficiency, we've never seen it in the regular season.
And especially if the three-point shot is real. Like, that makes a meaningful difference. Like, he's a completely different player that has absolutely no weaknesses offensively as a scorer.
Right. And that's why I think last year's playoff run is more impressive than the raw numbers would say, because he was able to produce at the level he did while the 3-ball left him in a way that I don't think we're going to see again. I do think he's better as a 3-point shooter this year. He's at 39%. I mean, it's not the ridiculous, 43% mark he was up at earlier this year, but I really couldn't be higher on Shai as a scorer. I think he's one of the absolute most unstoppable we've ever seen. In my 8th spot, I have somebody who was left off your list, Logan. I do have Steph Curry here from 2016 to 2019. It's a little bit difficult to pick Steph's peak exactly because going with this period, which I do think is overall his best 4 years, That means you leave out the 2015 playoffs, which is one of the most underrated offensive playoff runs ever. I mean, Steph was outstanding. You leave out the 21 regular season, one of the great offensive carry jobs we've seen, and like the most volume scoring we've ever seen from Steph at crazy efficiency. And you leave out the 22 playoffs, which was another incredible scoring playoff run where he was asked to carry a huge load as an offensive player. So, I mean, if you could extend it to 15 to 22, then you would get all the greatest hits from Steph in. But even just looking at this 4-year run, he belongs in my 8th spot. The regular season numbers are absolutely absurd. 29.1 league adjusted points per 75 on plus 10% relative true shooting. Steph Curry, at this point in NBA history, the most efficient volume scorer that we've ever seen. I mean, that 2016 season is the most efficient volume scoring season we've ever seen. In the playoffs, not as insane the numbers overall, but still so damn good and still underrated in my opinion. 26.8 league adjusted points per 75 on almost plus 7% relative true shooting. So still elite efficiency, just not the literal GOAT level that it was at in the regular season. But that scoring efficiency is absurd. He fueled, I mean, so many of the greatest offenses ever in this 4-year run. But specifically, if you look at 2016, before they have KD, just by being stratospheres ahead of the league with his shooting threat, with his scoring skill set, he was truly like impossible for opposing teams to deal with at that time. And again, as we judge everything relative to the league at the time, I think that Steph was a more well-rounded scorer by 2021. I think mostly just because he was stronger and he was a little bit better playing through contact. But 2016, I mean, just the raw advantage he had over defenses that schematically in terms of personnel were not at all prepared for what he brought to the table when it comes to the range and the pick and roll genius and all the off-ball stuff. He left teams totally helpless. So he's the greatest off-ball scorer ever by far, one of the greatest pure off-ball movers. And again, I mean, part of that feeds into his playmaking value because he causes such chaos off-ball where if you have any sort of action where somebody's setting an off-ball screen for Steph, he has the ability to curl over top, draw two with him, and that leads to a wide open slip to the basket for a teammate. Again, that's playmaking value, but it's a testament to how terrifying the scoring threat from Steph Curry is. The efficiency across all play types is just ridiculous. Pick and roll, isolation. He doesn't have the volume of some of the other guys here, mostly because he was so willing to play off ball, but also he couldn't self-create at the volume of a Shai or whatever, right? I'm definitely not saying that. But when he did self-create, hyper efficient. And look, he's got the most valuable offensive superpower in NBA history, right? If you have to choose one trait, I'm going to choose Steph's ability to get up 11 three-point attempts a game and make 43% of them in the regular season. That is absolutely absurd. That is elite rim efficiency that he is generating pretty much whenever he wants. I'm saying it's the equivalent of elite rim efficiency with how threes are weighted, obviously, worth 1.5 times as much as twos. Off the dribble, off movement, off ball, from insane range, and how that improves his entire offensive game, right? How drawing defenders 30 plus feet beyond the basket creates more opportunities for him to get downhill, where he's always been underrated as a finishing guard. He's up around 65% at the rim in these years. Like with his peak quickness, with his craft as a finisher and his body control and his touch, he was really quite good there. And then he's 47% from mid-range, 55% on two-pointers overall. That's a really good number. The guy was just, again, like nothing the league had ever seen. And that was true whether he was playing with Kevin Durant or without Kevin Durant. If you look at the years from 2017 to 2019, when he was out there without KD, 32 points per 75 on plus 6.5% relative true shooting. Like repeatedly, he showed an ability to ramp up the volume as needed to massive heights and produce elite team offense, even with just okay supporting offensive talent. We saw it, I mean, so many times, right? 2015, 2016, predating KD, the 2019 playoffs, 2021 regular season, 2022 playoffs, basically his entire career outside of KD, Steph has been leading to elite team offense and has been able to produce crazy efficient offense for himself. And from 2016 to 2019, the Warriors had a plus 11.2 relative offensive rating with Steph on the court, Logan. Plus 11.2. I mean, that's like you're producing the GOAT offense every year as long as Steph Curry is on the court. When he was off the court, they were a slightly below average league offense. And in minutes with KD without Steph, they were like a good, not great offense. In minutes with Steph without KD, they were an all-time great offense. Like, we're not measuring offensive impact here. If we were, Steph would obviously be higher than this, but it is still a major testament to his scoring value. And I think purely as a scorer, he does still belong here. Like, I would totally hear a case for Kobe just because I think Kobe could get his volume no matter what, more so than Steph. But I still think the efficiency edge with Steph is enough for me to give him the nod when the volume is still great. And like, I just really don't see many knocks on him. Through 2016, he could be bothered by physicality. And because he wasn't on the ball like that, he couldn't generate the massive volume of some of the guys above him. But I really think so many of the criticisms of Steph are just about the 2016 playoffs, when he didn't play very well, but he also wasn't 100%. He was banged up in that run. He was coming off of maybe the greatest offensive regular season ever, so the bar was insanely high. I think overall, you look at his finals career, he's over 27 points per game on plus 4.5% relative true shooting. His playoff career, he's 27 points per game on better than plus 5% relative true shooting. Like, there's just so many great runs in this 4-year stretch and beyond. And we're just talking about the absolute peak, but I just think the scoring value is absolutely there to have Steph on this list. Like, I'm sorry, bro. Compared to Larry Bird, it's not close. It's truly not close.
I hear an argument for Steph, and I when I'm making these points, like, I don't want to act like it's not close. I think Steph has the lowest scoring floor of any player on this list, and that's why he didn't make my list.
Higher than Larry Bird.
I just think a bad Steph game, like, I've just seen Steph play below, like, and again, this wouldn't be the version of Steph I chose. I would have chosen the older version of Steph when I think he peaked with the 2022. I think he was better and more equipped for the playoffs. I, again, don't think Steph being off my list is going to be my hottest take from this episode. I'm still waiting to get to that one. I think Steph was, again, a little bit more susceptible to dropping off because of physicality in the playoffs. And again, I'll reiterate that point. I think he has the lowest scoring floor of anyone on this list because of his. I understand the efficiency things and how
Larry
valuable
Bird had two
his shooting
8-point
was.
games in the same final series, in back-to-back games.
Dude,
Larry Bird cannot be over Steph Curry as a scorer.
Steph has so many games I can point to where he is.
Point to two worse than Larry Bird having 8 points in back-to-back finals games.
I mean, dude, a ton where he is under, like 32%
Point to
from
two.
the field, dude.
Bro.
Cleveland in the finals, 19 points, 5 of 23 from the field, 2 of 15 from deep. I think Steph.
And Larry Bird had 8 points in
Carson,
back-to-back finals games. Like, you're talking about Steph being overwhelmed by physicality, great athletes, right? What about Larry Bird when he went up against a Dennis Rodman? He was more effectable than any player we're talking about on this list.
And scoring versatility. I understand his efficiency. I understand his scoring.
Steph's
I think
scoring versatility is great, and Steph has a path to hyper-efficiency.
I know he's your
Larry
boy.
Doesn't.
I know he's your boy.
Well, I love Larry, too. He's just not a top 10 scorer ever.
I think that, and I know you're dug into your heels and your ways. I'm dug into this take too. I think that there is. I think his, again, I'm just going to reiterate my fundamental point when I came back to it against everybody else. I think his scoring floor is the lowest of anyone on this list.
I can't let you get that off, bro. I cannot let you get that off.
I think Steph's the greatest offensive player of all time.
In one series against Detroit,
is a difference to
in
me.
1 week, Logan, let me talk. In 1 week, Larry Bird went 10 points on 4 of 11 in one game. Then he went 12 points on 4 of 14. Then he went 13 points on 4 of 10. That is in 1 week, one playoff series against Dennis Rodman and the Detroit Pistons. You are saying something that is factually false, and you're acting like I'm dug into my ways. I'm telling the truth.
And I think there is a difference between Steph Curry's longevity as a basketball player and his absolute peak. And when I look at his peak, this isn't his scoring peak to me. His scoring peak is later than this because he was more equipped for the playoffs when he was older and stronger and ready to deal with that kind of physicality. And to be honest with you, I'll keep it a buck. I don't really put much credence into anything Steph and KD did together because they were cheating. That was so much basketball talent. I'm not saying that I look at it as meaningless, but they were so talented. They could have off nights, and it didn't matter because that's the most talented basketball team ever assembled. I just don't think Steph, when I look at the versatility, he belongs. I think Steph's totality of his career, the longevity, I think how he impacts team offense and stresses them with his shooting, I think he's the greatest offensive player of all time. I think Steph's one. If we redid our all offense teams again, I would take Steph number one overall. Probably him or Nikola Jokic. I get that. And I'm not trying to take a fat piss on Steph Curry because I like Steph too. But when I look at I think Steph's longevity is more of a part to him being the greatest offensive engine that is an absolute peak. I think guys peaked higher than him offensively as scorers.
Bro, if you wanted to make an argument for some of the other dudes on this list, just not Larry Bird, bro. Like, there's just no way. There's just no way. I just can't let you get that
I'm just
off.
not going to act like Larry doesn't belong here at all.
As a scorer, he doesn't. He doesn't. I mean, the extent to which Steph could carve you up as a scorer, the superpower that he had, the efficiency ceiling that he had. And again, even the scoring floor was higher than Larry.
That's
like,
the
I
difference.
think, bro, maybe you just got to go
there's
back and watch. No, it's not the difference. Larry's floor was lower. Larry's ceiling was lower. Larry's volume was lower.
Agree.
Larry's
I think his ceiling was lower. I think
he was a worse scorer.
I think Steph's ceiling is higher, but I think his floor is unequivocally lower.
I can't believe this. I can't believe this. Go back and watch Larry against like truly elite athletic front courts, bro. Go back and watch him against Robert Reed. And I love Larry Bird. I am telling you, what you are saying is wrong. Steph Curry would not have a final series where he averaged 15 points per game on horrible efficiency, right? Like Larry Bird did. Like, there were just a number of playoff series where he struggled as a scorer, and he did so much great stuff to make him an extremely valuable basketball player. But no, he is not a top 10 scorer of all time. No question. Anyways, who is in your 7 spot, Logan?
I've got LeBron here in my 7 spot, and I debated having LeBron higher. He's just one of the most unstoppable rim pressures of all time, and this version of LeBron, 2012 to 2014, combines that blend of elite rim pressure, one of the best athletes that has ever played the game, along with elite jump shooting. 77% almost inside of 3 feet, 49% from 3 to 10 feet, and at 40% from 10 feet out to the three-point line, while being a 37.5% three-point shooter. That's in the regular season. Over this 3-year run, also in the regular season, 27 points per game, 55% from the field, 39% from deep, 63% true shooting. In the playoffs, he's up to 28 points per game on 60.4% true shooting, with basically 8 free throw attempts per game. I mean, it's just the perfect blend to me of unstoppable downhill rim pressure and awesome jump shooting from LeBron. And that combination just consistently forces defenses to pick their poison. Either you're going to step up on LeBron on the jump shot and he's going to get all the way downhill to the rim, or you're going to settle out on that and he's just going to pull the jumper in your face. I think there are better versions of offensive LeBron in totality in terms of what he could do for a team offense in terms of decision-making and playmaking. I think older, like the next version of LeBron in Cleveland, I think is a better offensive engine in totality. But I think this is the best scoring version of LeBron. I mean, it's just, again, the immaculate jump shooting. Because, I mean, what's crazy is that LeBron's best jump shooting years of all time came right with Los Angeles when he's early on into that. He still is an awesome rim pressure. But this, to me, is the best blend of everything, of that downhill athleticism combined with the elite jump shooting. So 2012 to 2014 LeBron is here in my 7 spot.
Very interesting, Logan. I have this same peak from LeBron all the way up at number 3 on my list. I think the effectiveness justifies it. Now, as always with LeBron, there's a debate to be had of, okay, what is his peak in what specific way? I think you have to consider 16 to 18 with what he did in those postseasons. 29.2 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 7% relative true shooting. I mean, 17 and 18 just went absolutely crazy carrying those offenses. And I think that playoff scoring peak, 16 to 18, was probably slightly higher, but the regular season gap for 12 to 14, I mean, both the volume and the efficiency gap is sizable. He's 2 more league-adjusted points per 75. He's 4% better relative true shooting. And I do think, again, this is where the adjustments are important because the league was just in a more prosperous place offensively, even in 16 to 18 than it was 12 to 14. So that contextualizes LeBron's volume from 12 to 14 and makes it a little more impressive. And I will take the insane efficiency ceiling and just the insane efficiency overall that he had at that time because the athleticism and the play finishing was so exceptional. And I do think 16 to 18, I mean, really 17, 18 is LeBron's offensive peak, but that's more so because of the playmaking. That's when I think he was most surgical as a passer, no question. As a scorer purely, I'll take 12 to 14. When in the regular season, he gave you 28.7 league adjusted points per 75 on almost plus 10% relative true shooting. One of the most efficient volume scorers ever. And in the playoffs, 28.4 league adjusted points per 75 on plus 7% relative true shooting. Still elite efficiency. Just absurd, dude. I mean, almost 60% on twos, 38.5% on threes, while he's taking 7.5 free throws a game. Just a complete battering ram. A top-tier downhill player in the history of this game. Just a ridiculous combination of first-step explosiveness and power with elite ball handling, with elite vertical athleticism. The rim finishing at this point, LeBron was over 76% on massive volume. It's one of the highest finishing peaks, one of the highest rim pressuring peaks we've ever seen. He was an elite on-ball scorer in multiple ways, elite out of pick and roll, elite out isolation, walking mismatch, and an elite post-up scorer by this stage, right? Really prioritized that post craft, building out his strength after the disappointment of 2011, and was so effective in that way at this stage in his career, and was quite a good jump shooter at this point. Like you said, I mean, LA, that's when he peaked as a shot maker these last couple years, but his next best stretch as a shot maker was 2013, 2014, when he's at about a point per jump shot, which is really good jump shooting efficiency. And then there's just no question this is when he was at his best as an off-ball scorer. And you can say part of that is privilege of circumstance, of playing with a Dwayne Wade, but also just athletically in terms of his buy-in, that's when he totally got the most out of his off-ball value. I mean, a really good catch and shooter at this point, pretty active cutter and an elite play finisher like that. And then at this stage in his career, one of the very best transition scorers ever. After he leaves Miami, LeBron starts to really slow things down, become more deliberate, become more of a half-court player. But at this point, I mean, outside of Giannis, I don't know that we've ever seen a better transition scorer than LeBron James at this moment. And I just think it was the best combination of creation and play finishing that LeBron ever had, and truly some of the best ever. And again, just one of the most impactful offensive peaks of all time. A plus 11 offensive on-off swing. The Heat were a plus 7.5 relative offense with him on the court. Of course, that's total offensive impact. The playmaking is part of that. But I think at this point, LeBron was a better scorer than a passer because he still had progress to make as a passer. He was brilliant, but again, not the surgeon he would be by 2017, 2018. As a scorer, just absolutely ridiculous. And I really have no criticisms of him. I think most of the criticisms would be predicated upon kind of aesthetic stuff, right? Like people hold the lack of, I don't know, elite shot making, they would say, against him. But LeBron's shot making was really, really good at this point. And there really wasn't a matchup in this 3-year stretch that he didn't excel in and dominate. My only knocks would be against my top two. He didn't reach those heights of volume or efficiency and not as insane an off-ball scorer as them, and his jump shooting could go through lulls. But then you even look at the 2012 playoffs, and it's like he had a really down three-point shooting run, and he still gave you 30 a game on like elite efficiency and won the title, obviously, carried the team to the title. I'm really high on this version of LeBron as a scorer. I think LeBron as a scorer can get underrated, probably because of the totality of what he does as a player, probably in part because of the aesthetics. But man, I mean, he was essentially unstoppable at this point.
He was. I debated having LeBron up higher. I do think there are guys who were just a little bit more unstoppable, though.
Well, speaking of unstoppable, Logan, in my 7 spot, I've got Shaquille O'Neal. You talk about unstoppable, and he is the definition of it. From 2000 to 2002, in the regular season, 29.6 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 6% relative true shooting. In the playoffs, 28.8 league adjusted points per 75 on plus 4% relative true shooting, producing with that sort of volume and efficiency in just this hideous era for NBA offense, right? Where paints were packed and the game was so slow and physical, and Shaq was still able to completely dominate in that environment. Like, I think that's really worth highlighting, because you think, okay, when you're going up against a player like Shaq, because of the lack of versatility, by really packing the paint, by sending a bunch of doubles at him, because he doesn't have optimal spacing around him, can you cut into his scoring effectiveness a fair bit? And the answer is really no. I mean, you go back and you rewatch any Shaq game from this time, especially in the playoff runs, like, he is seeing double teams and triple teams and packed paint so frequently, and I truly believe, and I don't even think it's a conversation really, Shaq is the greatest player ever at scoring against double teams, at scoring from within the paint against packed paints. I think people are sometimes inclined to think of somebody like a super dazzling, difficult shot maker like Kobe, right? Who sees the late double coming and he doesn't give a fuck. He just fires the fadeaway anyway. But Shaq's ability to navigate, I mean, multiple bodies and hit you with a drop step or hit you with really a graceful spin in traffic, get over that right shoulder, too big, too strong, no matter what. And that was a super efficient shot for him. Like, the guy truly was unstoppable. That's the word we keep coming back to, but he was such a completely overwhelming physical force that with his power, if it's a drop step or a back down, you let him get a deep catch, the possession's over. Shaq scoring. If you let him catch anywhere without aggressive help, the possession is essentially over, right? Nobody is stopping Shaq one-on-one in the paint. But then again, the touch was so damn good. That hook over the right shoulder, and he could go over the left too, and overall I just think had more counters and better touch than he gets credit for. But that ability to hit those hooks at a really strong clip was such a weapon. It was really like the driving force of Shaq's greatness as a scorer. That size and touch combination and power, obviously, but you know, he was hitting a lot more of those hook shots in traffic than he was just like dunking on somebody, burying them under the rim. But of course he could do both. I think he's absolutely one of the top 3 post-up scoring machines in league history. To be 325 pounds and have the footwork and the skill and the agility and the body control that he did, it's honestly just freakish stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, defenses would pack the paint and he would still give them the numbers he did, and he'd still have a huge impact on team offense, lead an elite offense every year, drop 35, 38 a game in the finals. And so much of that is post volume. I mean, just ridiculous what he took on there. But also, he was an efficient pick and roll finisher. He's got this massive offensive rebounding and putback value, which, I mean, again, it's not going to like dazzle you like a lot of other scoring types, but nevertheless, I mean, it's super efficient scoring that he is providing you. 4.8 offensive rebounds a game in the playoffs over these years. Truly one of the best ever there. The volume and efficiency combo from him, especially in the playoffs, but overall, it's just absolutely nuts. So I guess the criticism on Shaq is you could limit his scoring volume a tad by sending crazy amounts of bodies. But again, I think he mostly persisted in spite of that. There is the free throw issue where you hack him, you just foul him, and like he's only going to make 53% of his free throws. But as I said, I don't think anybody ever has been better at scoring against super crowded paints in terms of a big especially. And even sending him to the line in this era was more valuable than an average NBA possession. Shaq free throws generate 1.06 points per possession, and the average offensive possession is generating 1.04 points. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not crazy efficient, but like there really was no answer. And that's why I think Shaq is one of the most unconventional all-time great offensive engines. He led the Lakers to be a plus 8.5 relative offense when he was on the floor over these years. He had an 11-point offensive on-off swing. Like, again, everybody is going to clear him in terms of aesthetics and versatility, but to be number 7 on my list, Shaq didn't need any of that stuff. Like the effectiveness, the value, the playoff translatability, volume efficiency, it's all absolutely good enough for him to be at this spot on my list.
What years did you go with for Shaq?
2002.
2002. I went with 98 to 01 Shaq. I mean, I have Shaq all the way up here at number 4, and I really don't give a damn about the versatility. When you're as unstoppable as Shaq, I don't care. I agree with you. There are some marginal things that you could point to if it's the spacing, if it's the free throw, the hack of Shaq. But I wrote down basically the exact same thing. You simply could not let Shaq in the paint. If he got there, it's wraps. 90.4% of Shaq's shots came within 10 feet at this stage in his career. And during this stretch, 28.5 points per game, 57.6% from the field. I mean, damn, dude, I just sit here thinking about how much more efficient could have Shaq been if he could have just hit some shots from the line.
Yeah, bro.
Shaq would average like 35 a game, and we'd all just be going, oh, yeah, he's the GOAT. This is the best player of all time.
75% free throw shooter Shaq. If he were a Kareem-level free throw shooter, he'd maybe not be the best scorer ever because someone exists, but he would definitely be top 2.
If Shaq wasn't embarrassed about shooting granny style, he could have done it. It's crazy to me. He upped his playoff scoring to 30.1 points per game over this stretch, too. And I'm so glad you mentioned one of the most underrated aspects of Shaq's game, I think, is the offensive rebound. Shaq or his teammate could miss. During the regular season, he's averaging 4 offensive rebounds per game. In the playoffs, he's averaging 5. I mean, considering Shaq, I'm willing to give him an extra 6 to 8 points per game just off the offensive glass, off of extra opportunities. You have to consider that. And so, to other guys that have more scoring versatility, I just think Shaq more than makes up for it in effectiveness and pure scoring value. And again, this was the biggest thing to me, he just left more defenses completely helpless.
Super valid take, dude. What he was doing to grown men in these playoff runs is what's most memorable, but really in any matchup, it's absolutely absurd. And I guess you could say, okay, there is a certain rigidity in terms of how you have to play with Shaq, right? Because he needs so much post-up volume. And yeah, he's a good play finisher, but not somebody who's going to play out of pick and roll a ton. But also, I don't care at all. I'm not really thinking that much about portability on this list because I think we saw Shaq play in multiple different offensive situations. I mean, through the first 12 years of his career, and he led to elite offense anywhere. In Orlando, in LA before Kobe became the player he was, in LA with Kobe, and just absolutely one of the most impactful scorers to ever play the game. So I would definitely hear a case for him all the way up at 4. However, Logan, we're not there yet. So who is in your 6th spot?
In my 6th spot is a guy that is not on your list. I have George Gervin here from 1978 to 1982.
Oh, my God. Holy shit, I'm going to cry. I love the Iceman. I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming from a mile away. Wow.
I mean, I just couldn't leave George Gervin off of my list. And, I think the only reason you could is maybe, era bias. Going back and watching Gervin, he is just so ahead of his time and so unstoppable. We keep coming back to this word, but there's nothing you could do with the Iceman. I went from 1978 to 1982. On his career, Gervin was a 4-time regular season scoring champ and a 6-time playoff scoring champ. In the regular season over this stretch, he's given you 29.8 points per game on plus 4% relative true shooting with nearly 8 free throw attempts per game. In the playoffs, same amount of free throw attempts per game. 29.6 points per game on plus 3% relative true shooting. And what stands out when you go back and watch Gervin from this era is his absolutely absurd touch. I mean, immaculate timing and anticipation on shots. That little finger roll and the post hook. The jump shot is so butter. Great post scorer. Elite footwork and such a great ability to navigate within the lane. And what also sticks out about him is his off-ball scoring ability, his ability to move without the ball to open space to get to his spots, cutting to the bucket if they're backdoor lobs or alley-oops, but specifically Gervin's ability to score through double and triple teams. I mean, there are so many instances where they are throwing everybody at him on the court, and he is still getting shots up. Gervin reminds me of Michael Jordan in the sense that they are so ahead of their time. It almost just doesn't make sense. He is so much better at putting the ball in the basket than everybody else that is on the court with him. And so, again, I'm judging Gervin relative to his era, and I just don't think there was anything you could do with the Iceman in this time to stop him. He has got some of the greatest touch of any scorer I have ever seen, and no amount of bodies you could throw at the guy could slow him down. So I was just going to feel bad leaving Gervin off this list. I couldn't do it. So Gervin is here at number 6 for me.
Logan, it excites me in all the right ways. He's a great honorable mention. I mean, I think what stands out with him, as you're saying, it's the fluidity, the shot making, right? I mean, with really good positional size, but the variety as a shot maker, the counters that he had. He's sort of like a prototypical 70s scoring wing. Not an elite athlete, but somebody who was so skilled, could still get to the line at a good rate, efficient scorer. Like, yeah, I mean, he's one of the best scorers ever. There's no doubt about it. And by the way, did lead some elite team offenses in this run because of his scoring value. I mean, 1978 to 82, the Spurs were a top 4 offense every single year. I like the case. I do. However, I disagree the only way to have him off is era bias, because I do think, I mean, the bar is just so crazy high to be on this list. And I look at a guy like Dirk, and I'm like, what he did in the playoffs in terms of volume and efficiency, that surpasses George Gervin. And I think the same would go for Kobe in terms of volume, especially, I mean, deep playoff runs. Unfortunately, we didn't really get deep playoff runs from Gervin. We did see him, advance into the second round a few times, but the impressiveness of what Kobe did in that setting, the efficiency ceiling of a Steph Curry. Like, I look at all the guys who I have and I'm like, yeah, I feel good about having them all above Gervin, but I don't think having Gervin on this list is crazy. Like, he truly is. When you talk about a pure scorer, one of the best ever, because a lot of these guys, they've got some other trait that is like a real major plus. Gervin, not really. He was solid defensively, and with his size and his length, right, he could generate some stocks for you, but not a particularly good passer. Pretty much just a fucking bucket, and an incredible one.
He's just so much better at putting the ball in the basket than anybody in like that pocket, that era. Like, he is so far ahead of everybody else. And that's just, he's just, it seems futuristic almost what Gervin is doing out there, and it just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know. For me, he's got to be here.
I love it, dude. You know how close the Iceman is to my heart, from my pedophile teacher in high school having a poster of him that was really cool, to the edit that I saw on TikTok one time talking about a game. I think it was in the 85 season when he was with the Bulls with young MJ, and he dropped like 30 in the first half or something, and he's just got this wistful, nostalgic look in his eye talking about, I was just showing you how I used to be. I don't know. I love George Gervin. So W take. I'm not going to argue it. I'm not going to push back. W George Gervin love. We need more of it as a society. I have one of his peers, Logan. I have one of his contemporaries in my 6th spot, and that's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who I do give the slight edge over Shaq as the greatest scoring center of all time. Now, Kareem is one of those guys, and there's a few players on this list where it's like, you really are debating, what are you defining as the scoring peak here? Because I consider 2 different stretches, 74 to 77 or 77 to 80. Ultimately, I think 74 to 77 just has the better numbers, and I think is the best cross-section of when he had truly mastered like the accuracy and efficiency of the sky hook by those mid-70s, and was still quite athletic, just a little more athletic than he was in the late 70s. But that 1980 postseason he had was special. We remember so often what Magic did as a rookie, stepping up in Game 6, 42, 15, and 7 to close it out without Kareem. I think, unfortunately, that can cloud how insane Kareem was in that series before that, how insane he was in that playoff run overall. So, I mean, there's a strong argument for either one. I'm going to go with 74 to 77, though. Regular season, he was 25.1 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 7% relative true shooting. So the volume a little bit lower. In the playoffs, though, 28.5 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 10% relative true shooting. The most efficient postseason scoring of any player on this list. That's really Kareem's case. It's that hyper efficiency, and some of the moments, some of the series that he has in this stretch, just so stupid, dude. He's got a series in 74 against the number 1 defense Bulls where he averaged 35 points per game on plus 17% relative true shooting. The volume, again, we got to adjust a little bit because he was playing every minute and pace was pretty fast at that time. But like that efficiency, dude, 77, he's got a 7-game series where he drops 37 a game on the Warriors on plus 13% relative true shooting. Again, Steph is a guy who could reach those regular season efficiency heights that Kareem did. Jokic is a guy who could reach those regular season efficiency heights. When it comes to the playoffs, though, I mean, it's just him. KD has some incredible efficiency numbers in the playoffs. Dirk, I mentioned, but Kareem is still the best there. And he did this in spite of not being an elite foul drawer, like 6.5 free throw attempts a game over these years in the regular season. Good, not great free throw numbers. Just ridiculous. Like so much of it predicated on this really unique combination of size and skill. The guy had the greatest shot in NBA history. I really don't think that's arguable. Like when we talk about a specific move, right? Steph Curry's 3-point shooting is the most valuable shot if you can classify that as one. But there's so many different components of that, off the dribble, off movement, step back, et cetera, et cetera. When it comes to just one shot, Kareem was completely unstoppable with the skyhook, especially at this age where in the early 70s, there were a couple more defenders, Wilt, Nate Thurmond, who could bother him with physicality, who could get under his base a little bit and move him off his spot some. And also the touch wasn't as perfect as it would become. By this point, like truly nobody could affect him as a post scorer. He was 7'2", really graceful and agile, elite polished footwork, and he could kill you with the hook over either shoulder. He had counters, right? He could step through and just a monstrous post scorer. I would choose him as the greatest post scorer of all time. And also a very good offensive rebounder, not Shaq level, but another way to deliver value as a scorer. So I do think, I mean, you have to pick some version of Kareem from the mid to late 70s when you talk about the scoring purely. 71 to 73, I think he was at his best defensively, but he had some rough playoff runs by his standards because, again, the scoring wasn't as polished. At this point with Kareem, I really don't think there's any criticism other than the fact that he couldn't reach the same volume heights as those above him. And that does matter, but I still think he's the greatest scoring big man ever. I definitely hear a case for Shaq, but the supreme skill and efficiency and lack of any sort of liability as a scorer with Kareem, whereas, again, Shaq does have the free throw shooting issue, I would give him the nod.
Yeah, I've got a different version of Kareem on my list, 77 to 80, and
Nice.
he's all the way up at number 2 for me. I agree with you.
Ooh.
I think he is the greatest scoring big man of all time. I don't know what you do with him. Every game I have ever watched from Kareem during this era is just, all right, dump the ball inside 10 to 12 feet, and Kareem's just going to rise and fire. Like, again, the two words that I come back to when I was thinking about compiling this list are unstoppable and completely helpless, and Kareem would just render entire teams helpless. There's absolutely nothing you could do. This version of Kareem in the regular season, some of the numbers may be overwhelming in terms of volume, just 25.1 points per game, but still 8 to 10% above relative true shooting of this era. And then in the playoffs, and these aren't deep runs except for 80, but 31.5 points per game on 8 to 10 plus relative true shooting with 8 free throw attempts per game. I think he was completely and utterly unstoppable. And I agree with you. Which version of Kareem you went with was a really hard problem for me. 1970 to 72 is the absolute athletic prime of Kareem. And if you remember, the NCAA outlawed dunking because of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was that dominant in college. And then you do have that version of Kareem, 75 to 77. It's a nice blend. I went with 77 to 80. I'm sacrificing some of that athleticism, but I think you are getting the most polish and the most efficient scoring version of Kareem. So this version of Kareem is all the way up at number 2 for me.
He's absolutely incredible. And when you talk about what do you do with him, again, this is a scoring list, but like Shaq, super underrated, good passer. And that's why those are the two guys before Jokic comes in and at this point is definitely the greatest offensive center ever. I've been saying he is for more than 5 years now because he's just totally revolutionized the playmaking aspect. But Kareem and Shaq were definitely the two greatest offensive big men ever before him. And it was driven by that scoring value first, that unstoppable scoring, but then also the ability to still be a plus passer. Like, you look at the years that you chose, right? Before Magic gets there, Magic debuts in the 1980 season. They were a top 5 offense in 77, 78, and 79. In Milwaukee, he was consistently leading out number 1, top 2 offenses. Like, his scoring was that supremely valuable. I do think if we compare him to a Wilt, and I'd say the same for Shaq, well, if you make the adjustments, I think their volume is actually better. But especially in a playoff setting, the volume, the efficiency is much better. And because they much better struck that balance between scoring and passing, much more impactful offensive players who really never struggled in a way that like Wilt did in some of his playoff runs. So shout out to Kareem, dude, all the way up at number 2. Look at you. Look at you. Okay, my number 5 is Shai. We've already addressed that. Who's in your 5 spot, Logan?
5 is where I do have Wilt here from 1962 to 1964. I just couldn't leave Wilt off this list. I agree with a lot of the sentiments that we talked about earlier. The playoff shortcomings, one of the funniest things I looked at was, and now I want to be clear about this, when I say these numbers, some of these aren't from this time period. This is his entire playoff career. Like against Nate Thurmond head-to-head in his playoff career, he averaged 12.5 points per game. Like, I do think Wilt has some significant playoff dropping that you have to consider when making this list. That being said, I mean, the guy's just so dominant on a normal game-to-game basis that I just wasn't going to feel right leaving him off my list. So much of it, if it's just him getting the ball in the low block and rising for a post fade, cash, nothing you can do. If it's him rolling and storming down the floor as the best athlete in basketball, just getting to a layup. Again, I think these criticisms of Wilt are valid, but I couldn't leave a guy putting up numbers like Wilt was off this list. From 62 to 64 in the regular season, 44 points per game on plus 6% relative true shooting. In the playoffs over that time, 35 points per game on plus 4% relative true shooting. I agree. The best version of Wilt in a team context, I think it's one of the highest peaks in NBA history. I think you could argue it is the highest peak in NBA history because of what he was doing for team offenses.
You're talking about from
66 to 68. Yeah, that playmaking value that Wilt is giving you is unreal, and those teams were unstoppable. This version of Wilt, though, I just think for the most part, was just so much better than everybody, all of his contemporaries. I think the playoff dropping is important to mention, but for me, it's not enough to leave him off this list. That being said, I do agree with the point that you're making. To me, he is the 4th best scoring big man. I don't think he's up there with like Shaq, Kareem, or even Jokic, all of whom I have higher.
I guess I would just continue to push the playoff dropping point because I really do think it's notable. I mean, Wilt has a worse playoff scoring resume at his peak than anybody in my top 10, and it's really not close. Again, 24.4 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 3.5% relative true shooting. I think there were specific matchups in which he could really struggle. You mentioned Nate Thurmond. That's a great shout. Just one of the greatest defensive players ever, and maybe the greatest post defender purely ever when it comes to just a man matchup to throw at Wilt or Kareem. He was outstanding. And then obviously Bill Russell, right? You look at even his peak years and in the 64 finals when the Warriors take on the Celtics, Wilt's scoring volume goes way down and he averages 29 total points per game. But again, I mean, when we make the adjustments for pace and whatnot, that number is significantly lower. I think it's more like 20 league-adjusted points per 75 possessions. And then the efficiency, rough. And obviously the thing that often came back to bite him was that the guy couldn't make a free throw. You know, you shoot 41% from the line in the finals. That's a problem. Wilt was a incredibly gifted scorer. I mean, so gifted to have the size that he had where he was the biggest human being in the NBA. And I think often because of that, people associate him immediately with like physical dominance, which he had, but so much of it was the touch, so much of it was the finger roll and the fadeaway that like he really preferred as a scorer to lean on that sort of finesse stuff. And he was incredibly skilled in that way. Like, and then you consider the agility that he did have for his size. I mean, Wilt is, I think there's a very good argument to be made, and I think he'd be my choice, relative to era, the most gifted athlete to ever play the game. But again, there were times in his career when he squeezed all the juice out of that, and there were times when he didn't. And this was the time in his career when I think Wilt got it the least, and I do think that diminishes his scoring value. Again, there's a lot of context that needs to be added that makes the volume less impressive. The playoff dropping is significant, and ultimately there's just 10 guys who I like more in this list. You have a very high bar. So, with that being said, Logan, your number 4 was Shaquille O'Neal. You already said that. I've got another Laker in my 4 spot. The one, the only, Jerry West. 1964 to 1966. And this is another important point to contextualize, right? Because if anybody thinks, oh, what if these adjustments, even though you've accounted for league efficiency, what if these pace adjustments are too hard on these old players? Jerry West, to me, very concretely proves that they are not. Because you have a guy whose playoff numbers with all these adjustments are outstanding, that are arguably better than any we've ever seen other than Michael Jordan, right? The gap in playoff performance between West and Wilt is monumental, absolutely gargantuan. And that's really where Jerry West makes his case. The regular season production is outstanding. 26.8 league adjusted points per 75 on plus 8.5% relative true shooting. Twice Jerry West led the league in true shooting as a guard long pre-3-point line. And by the way, Oscar Robertson also did that. I don't think those guys ever get appreciated enough for what monumental outliers they were in terms of their efficiency as guards at that time. But so great volume, insane efficiency. Then you get into the playoffs, bro. 30.4 league adjusted points per 75 on plus 7.5% relative true shooting. How is that guy real, man? Like, again, the only player to surpass that playoff volume is Michael Jordan, and the efficiency with West is even better in terms of relative true shooting than MJ's. He was an elite downhill guard, consistently up at like 11 free throw attempts per game, a foul drawing monster, and a damn good finisher at the rim. And I mean, the combination of skill and athleticism he had with very good size for his position and his time is incredible. You watch Jerry West, and he's one of those guys who just moves differently than everybody else out there. It's really fun. If you watch an early 60s Lakers game, both him and Elgin Baylor, I mean, they both pop in different ways. West was much better. He was much more efficient. He was ultimately a much more complete player. But the highlights with Baylor, I mean, the hang time and the change in direction with him is crazy too. He's not an honorable mention for me because the efficiency was so rough, but you know, his scoring volume peak was very high. But back to Jerry West, the ball handling. I mean, just the hyper efficiency, never wasting movement, that unique ability to change direction, to be so comfortable going either way with either hand. Like Jerry West was hitting his version of the crossovers, right? The sort of quick change in direction that nobody else was really doing. And then you have just the phenomenal pull-up shooting where, okay, he's elite downhill, but he can also rise up over you, and he can hit these pull-ups in transition. He can kill you with the fadeaways and with the face-up jumpers, and he's big enough to shoot over top of smaller guards. The skill set, just phenomenal. And you look at the playoff resume, and it's like, with that combination of volume and efficiency, how could you have him any lower than this? Like, I love Shai. I think Shai has done better stuff in the regular season, but as somebody who values the playoffs so much, Jerry West is the second greatest playoff scorer ever, only to Michael Jordan. I truly do believe that. And so I had to have him somewhere on this Mount Rushmore of scorers.
Yeah, I just overlooked Jerry. I think Jerry.
Oh, did you not have him?
I don't have Jerry on my list. Yeah.
Oh, Logan, you got to call an audible. Get Larry's bum ass off there.
I'm not
Jerry
taking
West.
Larry off. I've argued.
Logan,
Carson, we're
no.
2 hours and 30 minutes deep into this episode, and now people are catching up to us. I just argued Larry. I'm not going to go back. I'm just going to say
it's going to be hilarious. No, Logan, you want to have the right list. This isn't about pride. This isn't about what we've argued over. You know, I know you know. You love Jerry West. You know Jerry West is a better scorer than Larry Bird.
I just argued for 2 hours that Larry Bird should be on my list.
It doesn't matter.
It's gonna render all of those arguments we had meaningless.
That's fine. Well, you were arguing why he's 11th, and I was arguing why he's like 20-something. That still holds up. Don't let it affect your list.
mean, Jerry
when you put out a graphic, do you want Jerry West or Larry Bird on this list?
Jerry obviously makes more sense.
Right. So get him on here. Where do you think he slots in?
I could put him 10. I mean,
Too well?
I mean, it wouldn't feel right to me that I've argued all these other guys and I didn't put Jerry on my list. I just think it would make more sense to have him. So I'll do that. I'll go, yeah, I think 64 to 66 makes sense. I mean, speaking of guys who are just ahead of their time, man, Jerry personifies that more so than anybody else. Rest in peace, Jerry.
Rest in peace, dude. And by the way, for those who do want the raw volume scoring numbers from this time without the league adjustments, it's over 36 points per game across these playoff runs. Like, he was just absolutely ridiculous, man. And later in his career, I mean, he would improve as a playmaker, but this scoring at this point, and his scoring, I mean, throughout his playoff career, like, ironically, until the 72 title run, he actually wasn't good as a scorer in that run, but like all the way from 62 to 70, this guy was just absolutely eviscerating teams. 32 points per game as a playoff scorer. Stupid. Shout out to Jerry West. Okay, in my 3 spot, I have LeBron James. Logan, how high is Nikola Jokic on your list? What am I walking into here?
Jokic is number 3 for me.
And you have Kareem at number 2.
Yep.
You don't have somebody else? There's nobody who you're forgetting from your top 3?
Nope.
Really? Really? Well, I'm very excited to hear that. Wow.
Get off my Dickerson.
Get off my Dickerson did not make the list because of burner tax?
No, Steph didn't make my list because of IDF tax, but KD did not make my
LeBron
list.
On here?
LeBron's
only heard the most lovely things about Israel.
Yeah. Let's blow up the whole league, man.
Logan, this is the most shocking list in Nerd Sesh history. I'm not gonna lie.
No, I'm standing on this one. I definitely
away.
I'm dug into my heels on the KD take.
Okay, well, go with Jokic first. This is probably higher than anybody else on the planet would have Jokic, if I had to guess.
I mean, I just couldn't believe he didn't make your list. I'm going with 2023 to 2026 Jokic. Regular season, 27.1 points per game, 59, 40, 82 split, 67.3% true shooting with 6 free throw attempts a game. In the playoffs, up to 28.5 points per game on 53, 38, 81 splits, just under 62% true shooting with just under 7 free throw attempts per game. I just don't think there's anything that – I mean, we've seen it, and if you sell out on Jokic, I agree with you some of the points you were making about how you can limit some of his effectiveness because he initiates from the post, stuff like that. I just think he's got some of the greatest shooting touch in a player of his size combined with strength that I've ever seen, maybe of anybody ever. 75% between inside 3 feet, 62% 3 to 10 feet. That doesn't make any sense. 52% on shots 10 to 16 feet, and he's shooting 49% from 16 feet out to the three-point line, all while being just under a 40% three-point shooter. I just think this kind of touch in this size with this strength, Jokic is almost unstoppable. I think he is the second greatest scoring big man I've ever seen. This is where I would give him the nod for versatility over a guy like Shaq. I don't know if we're done seeing Jokic put on clinics in the playoffs. And he's one of these guys that is such a brilliant playmaker, kind of like LeBron. I do wonder sometimes if it just, like you've made this argument countless times, if it overshadows his actual pure scoring ability. Like, you have to have such a specific defensive counter on the other side. You have to have such a dominant, great defensive big man, a guy that matches up with him physically, right? If it's a Big Zoo, if it's a Gobert, and the rest of your defense also has to sell out on him. Jokic is just that dominant to me. So, I was shocked he didn't make your list. Absolutely gobsmacked, but Jokic is going to come in at number 3 for me.
This is super high. I definitely see a case for Jokic being top 10. I do not see a case for him being this high. I think the volume gap really is notable. And again, it's not just a pure business decision. I do think Jokic has always been underrated as a pure scorer because you think of the passing first. I agree with you there, but it doesn't go to this level. And I do think, among the greatest post scorers ever, he's 3 or 4. I think it's either him or Akeem after Kareem and Shaq. But I do think Kareem and Shaq had an ability to delivers such massive volume out of the post at great efficiency against defenses like fully slanted towards them. Whereas, I mean, there was a level of just like quickness and intention in terms of their movements that I think made them both less susceptible to double teams than Jokic, who at times can get caught up a little bit there, and he can get, again, a little bit physically overwhelmed by elite athletes, elite speed. You know, he doesn't have like the major height advantage of a Kareem or the overwhelming physical strength size advantage of a Shaq. I hate to have to argue against Jokic ever, but like, okay, compared to Shai is absolutely the best scorer in the NBA today because he can deliver a level of volume regardless of matchup that Jokic cannot claim to, because Shai can get to his spots no matter what, whereas you have to get to Jokic in his spots when it comes to him being a self-creator. And that's where the lack of ball handling, even though, I mean, he's one of the best ball handling bigs ever, obviously, but compared to a perimeter player, and again, some of these little limitations that can appear against truly elite athletes, like it's just easier to limit his volume. It really is. And the efficiency not being the same in the playoffs.
Would you agree with me that Jokic has performed better in the playoffs so far than SGA compared to one another?
Yes, I would. But I think the sample there is just not big enough with Shai for me to be moved by that yet, when I think the regular season gap is huge. And I also think if you look at last postseason, right, I think that Shai was absolutely the better scorer in that setting than Jokic was. I think clearly Jokic has the greater body of work because he has what he did in 2023, one of the great offensive playoff runs, the greatest offensive playoff run ever, in my opinion. But in terms of the level they've been at these last 2 years, regular season or playoffs, I would absolutely take Shai. I think that ability to cut through any defense as a scorer is just different. And then, again, versus Dirk, you know, I think a year and change ago, if you asked me this, and I probably did say this, I would have had Jokic as a scorer above Dirk, but I do come back to that ability to self-create in a number of different ways with Dirk. It really does matter. Again, if we can just, create a one-on-one matchup out of the post for Jokic, I mean, because of the touch and the strength, like, he's going to be effectively unstoppable. But when it comes to actually operating in congested playoff environments, a guy like Dirk, who, although ironically, I mean, if anything, you would say the one limitation with him is a great athlete, right? Double teams, they could get him because he's not as quick. Nevertheless, there is a sizable difference in perimeter initiation, in the quickness that he does have, in the rate at which he can get to a face-up pull-up jumper, get to the free throw line, all these things. I just think there are dudes who have done it at more volume and who it's translated better for purely as a scorer, of course, than Jokic. I do think Jokic is the best offensive player ever, and I think that's because he's a top 3 passer ever and a top, 12, 13 scorer ever. Like, that's the range I would have him in. And maybe a resounding playoff run puts him in the top 10. Like, I definitely think there's a case to be made there. But also, I mean, it is 3 straight playoff series in which we've seen him run into some issues as a scorer. The bar there is extremely high, but again, a Kareem, a Shaq, the scoring translated better in playoff runs. So that's why I give them the nod. And I truly can't believe that Kevin Durant is not on your list. I am more shocked by this than anything in Nerd Sesh history. I'm trying to think of the most shocking moments. There was that time that you revealed your cock and balls. That was pretty shocking, just because I didn't expect it to have that shape. There was the time that, I think that was the 2023 playoffs. You had Steph ranked like 9th or something on your players, and I couldn't believe it. There was a time you ranked DeAndre Hunter as a top 15 player to build around.
That's the GOAT. That's GOAT.
Probably
that
the
takes
one.
The cake.
Yeah, you've said some wild shit, man. KD not a top 10 scorer of all time. Larry Bird over Kevin Durant as a scorer. It's the craziest I've ever heard. I mean, I want to go to you first because clearly you've got the more interesting take here. I've got KD at number 2 with everybody else. You've got him God knows where.
I just think there are real tangible skill set issues that I can point to KD of why it didn't translate fully over to the playoffs. And let me be clear about something. Like I said with Steph, I don't know what the hell to do with KD with the Warriors because that was fake dream basketball with the greatest talent ever assembled. And so I specifically looked at 2011 to 2014, where most people would when you see this athletic crossover, pre-injuries, combined with the elite jump shooting in this body. But while we're looking at this stretch of Kevin Durant basketball, I also think you can point to certain things that or why he performed below his value in the playoffs. I'll give you the numbers. Regular season, 29 points per game, 49, 39, 88 split, 62.1% true shooting. Playoffs, 29 points per game, 47, 35, 84 splits, 59.1% true shooting with 9 free throw attempts per game, basically, in the regular season, both the playoffs. I think that KD, with his slim frame, has always been a little bit more susceptible to that kind of physicality hurting him. I think he's very reliant on his jump shot and three-pointer. The biggest thing to me is the lack of an elite handle, though. I think KD had real turnover issues that we kind of just gloss over in this stretch where that they could come back and bite him on the ass. And I don't know if that is actually the best scoring version of KD in the playoffs. I think it is his most athletic version, but I don't know if it is the best scoring version. But with that trade-off, I don't know, like I look at older versions of KD and I kind of still feel similarly about the reliance on the jump shooting. And there's always an unstoppability, right, with him being able to rise and fire in the mid-range. But, again, this version of KD, I think the physicality could throw him off. I don't think he had an elite handle, and I think he was relying on a jump shot the way other players on my list weren't. And so I dinged him for it. Yeah, that's why I didn't mention him in my honorable mentions. I think this is my hottest take of the episode. I wouldn't have KD on my list.
It's your worst take ever, Logan. No disrespect, it's your worst take ever. It's an unjustifiable position. And by the way, I did not go with that peak. I mean, KD's peak, it's so hard to define. Here's what I've officially settled on, okay? 2014 is absolutely KD's best season ever, right? The cross-section of his athletic peak, his rim pressuring peak, him having a really good playmaking season, him carrying that team like he did, absolutely incredible. The scoring volume efficiency was ridiculous. If you are telling me pick a 3-year stretch, though, I would take 2017 to 2019 KD. Honestly, though, you could go with either one, 12 to 14 or 17 to 19. It would be number 2 on this list for me. The playoff scoring was just so insane with the Warriors that I give that the nod. But, I mean, I'll give the numbers for both. 12 to 14 in the regular season, 29.7 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 10% relative true shooting. In the playoffs, not quite as good. 27.3 league-adjusted points per 75, though, on plus 6% relative true shooting. Like, obviously, that alone gets you very, very high on this list. And then you look at the 17 to 19 stretch. In the regular season, 26.7 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 8.5% relative true shooting. And in the playoffs, 28.8 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 8.7% relative true shooting. If you're picking the best 3-year playoff scoring runs in NBA history, you're going with MJ at his best, you're going with Jerry West at his best, and you're going with Kevin Durant at his best. Like, Logan, I just reject flatly on its face the idea that because he and Steph played together, we can't assess how great KD was as a scorer.
All time. No, I remember it, and it's the easiest I've ever seen a team mow through a playoff field.
For sure.
I have a lack of respect for KD for that move, and I don't know how to accurately assess peak KD because he was in the easiest basketball situation to ever thrive in with 3 other all-stars. Like, I don't.
Okay, well, how about we look at the 2014 season when he leads a team to be a top 5 offense in 59 wins and he's scoring 32 points per game on plus 10% relative true shooting when Russell Westbrook was hurt for half the season and the spacing was absolutely laughable. What if we look at the minutes that he played without Steph in the years when they were teammates and he gave you more than 31 points per 75 possessions on plus 5% relative true shooting? My point is, we have an enormous sample size of Kevin Durant playing basketball without Steph Curry on the court, which alone, again, justifies him being a top 2 scorer in NBA history. So I just don't buy that from you at all. I think that's honestly pure KD hate. And, you know, I guess this is the time to strike because the KD files are out and they are damning. But KD in the playoffs from 2017 to 2019, Logan, I want to say something real quick. I think you have a bias against jump shooters. I think that's what I'm concluding from this list because, like, you made the Steph point, right? And you really hammered that. And it's like, look, I'll give you, out of all the guys on my list, Steph does have the lowest scoring floor versus somebody like a Jokic, right, who can just physically impose himself so much more in the paint. Jokic has a higher scoring floor than Steph versus another guard like Kobe. Kobe with his variety, his proficiency inside the arc. He absolutely has a higher scoring floor. Nevertheless, though, Steph Curry is the greatest three-point shooter of all time. So that weapon is something he was able to repeatedly rely on, and it made him one of the greatest regular season and playoff scorers ever. Yes, he can have an off night, but the total body of work is one of the greatest scorers ever. Kevin Durant, you saying he's relying on his jump shooting. I mean, across these postseasons, he shot 54% from the mid-range, 40% from three. It's simply one of the greatest jump shooting peaks we've ever seen from a guy who had all-time fluidity, all-time size for being that level of a shot maker. We've never seen a jump shooter like KD at his size. And by the way, we've never seen somebody with the combination of ball handling and jump shooting that KD has at his size. Now, I will agree with you that he had turnover issues in those Thunder playoff runs. I think that was a combination of increased physicality and at times his ball handling could be something of an issue. But when you look at the Warriors runs, I mean, he really was not turning the ball over. He was turning it over at a very low rate.
I just don't know what to do with those because it's like Jokic on his own, right? And he's got Jamal Murray and everybody has good players around them. But it's like the responsibilities are just drastically so different.
But Jokic's scoring turnover rate is higher than Kevin Durant's. Jokic's scoring turnover rate is saying in the Warriors like around 7%.
That's not his role. KD's role is to catch a ball on the wing, take 2 dribbles, and rise and fire. Like,
bro, that's so disrespectful. That's so disrespectful to KD. KD had one of the greatest postseason scoring runs ever. One of the greatest finals performances ever, followed up by another one of the greatest. Yeah, he played on one of the greatest teams ever. But again, bro, there's so much incredible Kevin Durant scoring. Like, there is no way. Okay, whatever. You don't acknowledge the Warriors of 2017 or 2019 exist. 2012 to 2014, Kevin Durant has to be in your top 5. That's inarguable. The body of work is still way too good. Versus Larry Bird, bro. And I know we got him out of here now. What are you talking about? KD was way better as a scorer in the playoffs than Larry Bird. At any point in his career, at any point in his prime.
KD was worse than what he gave you in the regular season. He couldn't scale up.
And just dropping in a postseason doesn't mean that you are not an all-time great when your regular season standard is top 3 all-time. And then we also have a sample of KD getting even better in the playoffs. Logan, I know you watched 27 to 2019 Kevin Durant. That was the most effortlessly efficient volume scoring ever. And you say effortless like it's a bad thing, like it's all about him playing with Steph. It's not. On an island, as an isolation scorer, he was unstoppable. And by the way, he has this god-tier combination of on and off ball scoring. Bro, this shit is unbelievable, Logan. Unbelievable. 2017 and 2018, remember, I mentioned Data Baller's creation efficiency metric, right? KD's creation true shooting percentage was 100th percentile in back-to-back years at massive volume. Again, that incorporates everything. Isolation, pick and roll, post-up. The guy was phenomenal at all of it. And all 3 years, he was 97th percentile or better spot-up efficiency. Like, you're talking about his reliance on jump shooting, brother. He could manufacture a 1.1 points per possession, 1.2 points per possession jump shot on an island, out of pick and roll, whatever. And then also, by the way, he was getting to the line 8 times a game in these playoff runs, making 90% of his free throws and finishing 75% of his shots in the restricted area. So even though he didn't have crazy downhill volume, he was insanely efficient there, and he got to the line a ton, and he was insanely efficient there. Like, these numbers are unfathomable. And then 17 and 18 finals, 2 of the greatest displays of scoring skill ever. He gives you across those 2, 32 points per game on plus 12.5% relative true shooting. He's the most complete jump shooter in NBA history when you factor it all in. He's the most complete scorer in NBA history when you count for on-ball value, off-ball value, the ability to kill you from any spot on the floor, what he can do off-ball as a movement shooter, right? I mean, quick attacks off of pin downs, curling off screens. It was just such flawless shot making, such completely in control scoring. Again, he didn't have OKC KD's rim pressure, but he wasn't bothered in any of these runs. He had no turnover issues. It was sparkling efficiency every single time, just effortless scoring brilliance. My only criticism of Kevin Durant is that he's not Michael Jordan, that he couldn't reach the volume heights that MJ did or the levels of athletic imposition that MJ could. that's really not a conversation. Sometimes people try to make the cheeky, oh, KD's the greatest scorer ever, and he's just not. MJ stands alone above everybody else. But KD, I mean, he's got to be top 3, bro.
I don't respect Kevin Durant.
All right, I don't really know how to have a basketball conversation.
Again, when I go back to those Warriors teams, it's like I understand what you're saying, the sample, when we can look at it without Steph and this and that. I can fully isolate Kevin Durant by himself with his team. Russell Westbrook was the 2 to KD. I can isolate it in every single one of those years, and I think that version of KD, which I would say is, again, I can isolate it the most. That version of KD had real issues when we were looking at him in a playoff context.
And he was still excellent, bro. Again, you are too critical of people who quote-unquote drop in the playoffs, and you have to account for the fact that the regular season heights are all-time great when you say that, right? Like, not considering James Harden for this list, that's not right. That shouldn't be the case because, yes, he was a dropper, but if he's still putting up, again, more than 28 league-adjusted points per 75 on, like, still plus efficiency, you have to understand that's still great scoring value. It's just not what he was in the regular season. With KD, the gap is way, way smaller than that. KD, bro, what he did in the 2012 finals run when he was 29 a game on elite efficiency. I mean, what was that? That was like plus 10% relative true shooting, bro. He did that. Kevin Durant did that. 2014 is maybe a top 5 regular season scoring campaign ever. I mean, we got the MJ years, but like it's one of the absolute best. I just don't understand this at all. Well, I guess I do understand it. I guess it's pure hatred that fuels it, but it's not a good basketball take. It's a really bad basketball take. And I think we can leave it at that.
I have no respect for Kevin Durant.
I understand. You have no respect for Kevin Durant. How about number 1, Logan? Do you have respect for the man who was inexplicably grabbing at a young gentleman on video?
Dude, what the fuck was that, man? What is going on?
All of the NBA's faces, biggest stars, past and present, were having a fucking freak off at All-Star Weekend. They were trying to see who could have the worst PR. It's literally Wemby, bro. It's Wemby or bust. Just
God
ride
bless
or die with
Wemby, and I'm so glad he exists, and he's going to be the greatest player of all time. Yeah, I have Michael Jeffrey Jordan in my 1 spot. I went with 88 to 1990 MJ because, again, I look at this as the best blend of
no 91 in there.
I mean, I could have, but
I think 91 MJ is the best basketball player ever.
Yeah, I think I just initially when I made this list and I went with Jordan, I was only going to go with 3-year peaks, and then I realized for other guys I was going to have to extend it out. So I didn't go back and recorrect these numbers because I wanted to have a 3-year peak for everybody. It's how all the numbers would be consistent, and I'd have the same sample size. But I realized that wasn't feasible for some players on my list. Nevertheless, young Michael Jordan, this version of Michael Jordan is probably my favorite player to watch in NBA history, period. He is so much better than everyone else on the court at any given time during this stretch. He's given you 33.7 points per game on 60.8% true shooting. In the playoffs, he's giving you 36 points per game on 59.7% true shooting, drawing double-digit free throws in the playoffs, just under 10 in the regular season. And not only is he head and shoulders just the best player on the court, he is unequivocally the most athletic player on the court against every single team that he plays. The explosiveness, the quickness, the verticality, it all pops. But the best trait to me is the balance and grace. There's a reason they call MJ the Black Cat. He's got elite footwork along with it. Everything about his game. The post scoring and mismatch attacking. If MJ ever got a smaller guard on him, he was going at his head and immediately going up with the rock. He was unstoppable in transition. He had unreal touch around the basket. And the cherry on top is what an elite off-ball mover he was. Such great feel, scoring within the flow of the offense and finding open space. And he was also one of the best jump shooters in the league. And so, like a lot of these guys we're talking about today, you were just stuck in a perpetual conundrum defending Michael Jordan. You can't play up because he's going to blow right by you to the basket, and you can't play down because he's going to shoot it right in your grill. MJ's the GOAT.
Yeah, he is, bro. As a scorer, like, it's truly not close. We've had back-to-back episodes like that where there's really no debate at the top, right? We can have all sorts of fun debates, 2 through 10 honorable mentions, but you knew that Magic Johnson was going to be the greatest passer ever, and even more clearly, you knew that Michael Jordan was going to be the greatest scorer ever. I went with 89 to 93 for him, a 5-year run. You could argue that this should just be 89 to 91. That's when his regular season numbers peaked. I mean, they're absolutely unfathomable. But I felt like I had to get in the 92 and 93 playoff runs because, I mean, he's averaging like 35 a game in both of them. So I went with this 5-year stretch over which MJ sustained 30.8 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 6% relative true shooting in the regular season. Insane. But the playoff numbers are what's truly untouchable. 32.9 league-adjusted points per 75 on plus 5% relative true shooting. For context, the raw numbers over this 5-year stretch were 34.4 points per game. So again, in terms of my adjustment, 32.9 points per 75 league adjusted. The closest player was Jerry West at 30.4. It is a gapping. It is a clearing between Michael Jordan and everybody else. And you laid it out there with the skill set. He's the greatest rim finishing guard ever. Relative to era, again, just compared to the other dudes on the court, I think he's got the best first step ever. I think he's the best vertical athlete ever with the best body control of all time. I mean, he would just zoom right past people and then actually fly around the basket and make these incredible adjustments. And I mean, he had elite size as a 6'6 guard. He had big hands. He had long arms. He could just do ridiculous things with his body and the ball, contorting and finishing among the trees in a way that I truly think is the best of any guard ever. He had the strength to endure contact and finish in traffic at an absurd level, especially once you get to 91, because he added strength right after some of the losses to the Pistons, although his numbers, even in those series against the Pistons, are absolutely ridiculous. Monster foul drawer, 8 to 10 free throws a game consistently. So in terms of the rim scoring, he's the best guard ever. And then he's also probably the best mid-range shooting guard ever. I think SGA is making a case. He really is. But the volume for MJ, just considering how different the game was, how much more it was played through the mid-range, and the efficiency still, I think I have to give him the nod. And the variety he had, right? I mean, he had a lethal pull-up. The face-up game was insane. The fadeaway was insane. He had so many counters, and once again, that hang time. It's such a great weapon of MJ's in a way that you don't really see as much among the absolute best of the best in today's NBA, right? The guys who just like an Elgin Baylor back in his time in the 60s or a Michael Jordan in his time where like their advantage is truly their ability to stay in the air and get higher than other people around the basket, on runners, on jump shots. The game is just played differently now, but I mean, he was effectively creating tons of separation just with how high he could get and how long he could stay in the air as a jump shooter. And he had the size, he had the strength, he had the elite footwork to have an absurd post-up game. I mean, he's probably the best post-up scoring guard ever. Kobe would like to have a cup of coffee in that conversation for sure, but it's those two. And then off screens, I mean, he could strike from the mid-range and he could hit those lethal quick attacks. That's what's so insane about MJ is he's one of the best off-ball scorers ever. And overall, it is insane just how lean his game was, considering his volume is totally unparalleled. What I mean by that is incredibly low turnover rate, didn't have to dominate the ball, and yet is able to produce scoring volume nobody else can sniff with crazy efficiency. Truly a flawless scorer. If anybody tries to tell you that MJ has a flaw as a scorer, they're wrong. They're pushing an agenda. If anybody brings up three-point shooting, it didn't matter in that time.
Only knock I could have on MJ watching games back from this era would be the fact that he doesn't seem as comfortable dribbling with his left hand as much, but finishing, he could do it with
agenda.
Finishing, he could do it with both hands. Like, that would literally be the only one, and that ultimately didn't matter all that much in the context of how effective he was.
Exactly, Logan. Perfectly said. If people try to nitpick skill set, right, if they try to drop a modern mindset in terms of skill set to a player who played in the 90s, it doesn't matter. Look at effectiveness. Look at results. Michael Jordan is beyond a shadow of a doubt the most effective scorer to ever play this game. I do just want to shout out, I mean, some of the heights, bro, and these aren't the most memorable series necessarily because they weren't against the best opponents, but 1990 playoffs versus Philly, he averages 43 points per game on plus 8% relative true shooting. 92 playoffs versus the Heat, 45 points per game on plus 14% relative true shooting. And then, yeah, if you want to talk about the highest stakes, the most memorable stuff too, over these three NBA finals, 91 to 93, 36.3 points per game on plus 6% relative true shooting. We don't need to belabor the point. He is extremely obviously the GOAT scorer in NBA history. So, Logan, we can end this episode with certitude that we agree on one thing. There was much disagreement. There was much chaos. Your list, Logan, I could not have seen coming from a mile away. Should we just recap the top 10 real quick? Do you want to run it down for the people?
Not particularly, but I will. 10 spot, we booted one white guy for another. I now have 64 to 66 Jerry West in my 10 spot. In my 9 spot, I have 06 to 08 Kobe. My 8 spot, I have 24 to 26 SGA. 7, I have 12 to 14 LeBron. 6, I have 78 to 82 George Gervin. 5, I have 62 to 64 Wilt. 4, I have 98 to 01 Shaq. 3, I have 23 to 26 Jokic. 2, I have 77 to 80 Kareem. And number 1, I have 88 to 90 MJ.
What I learned about this list that's really interesting is Logan loves a big man. Logan loves the big man up at the top of that list. 4 in the top 5, which is interesting because I feel like it's easier for perimeter players to scale the volume up to crazy heights. And I think that's why I leaned on a couple more of those guys. But very interesting. Okay. My list, number 10, is 2009 to 2011, Dirk Nowitzki. Number 9, Kobe Bryant, all the way from 06 to 2010. Number 8, I have Steph Curry from 16 to 19. Number 7 is Shaq, 2000 to 02. Number 6, Kareem, 74 to 77. Number 5, Shai, right now, 24 to 26. Number 4, Jerry West, 64 to 66. Number 3, LeBron, 12 to 14. Number 2, KD, 17 to 19. Number 1, Michael Jordan, 89 to 93. We went to war in this episode. We had a lot of fun. We hope you guys enjoyed it. A light 3 hours of talk about the top 10 scorers in NBA history by peak. Would you expect anything else, Logan? Would you rather have it any other way? I wouldn't. I'm enjoying this series a lot. I hope you guys are liking it too. It seemed like a lot of you guys were excited when the Passers episode dropped that we were doing some historical stuff again. So hopefully we haven't killed your enthusiasm by debating Larry Bird as a scorer for 20 minutes to then ultimately have him not even end up on either list. But that's just how we do, baby. So appreciate you guys. As always, if you want more of our stuff, you know where to find us. All of our full episodes are on our YouTube channel and across all audio platforms. You can also watch all of our video essays and video breakdowns that we do on our YouTube channel. And if you want to follow us across social, you can do so. TikTok, Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh. That's where we've got all our viral takes and viral videos and viral graphics and viral trivia. Pretty much if anything's viral, you're going to find it on our viral social media accounts. And if you want, you can join our Discord and you can chat with the gang and be part of our active and vibrant and diverse and beautiful and wonderful community over there. And by diverse, I mean there's at least one woman in there. So that's something. And with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.